over onto IG, and then we all click and go live onto IG.
Copy the stream link, I think.
Bro, this is gonna be an interesting night.
Yeah, to say the least.
Dennis, are we live on YouTube?
Something's happening.
We are. We just hit.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to go live on Instagram now. Should I do that?
I hit go live on Instagram. Don't close your Instagram window after.
I'm not closing it.
If you do, you are going to be excommunicated.
For some reason, it's working on theirs. Charismatic Calvanist.
Dude. Okay, remember there's 4 of us. So we gotta be like, we can't all talk at the same time. Okay. We gotta be polite.
Tell that to Gabe.
Here's the thing. I always talk over people.
That's
it's how it's my love language.
It's your spiritual gift.
I'm Italian. This is how we love you.
Oh,
We love you by talking over you and conquering you.
You can bring that
Thank
back
you,
to
Gabe.
Romana.
Thank you, Gabe.
Pax
We love
Romana.
you too.
Yeah.
We love you too.
Piece of Rome. I'll give you a piece of Rome.
This is amazing. So are we live? We are going. Are we
Guys.
on every channel? Look at this.
Guys.
Look at this.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay.
Look
we're
at us,
live.
guys.
We're
Instagram
live
feed.
on YouTube. We're live on Rumble. We're live on Instagram. We're live on X. We're live on Facebook. And we're live on 3 separate Instagram channels right now. Okay?
Almost 4.
Wow.
Almost 4.
Almost 4.
My minion is working on getting us live, making us live.
We're live in Romania right now. Romania TV.
Oh, we are live. We are live.
Showing up, by the way. Let's go.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, this looks great.
Look at that.
Cool.
This is a
We're not
first.
supposed to close it, so we gotta leave this open, and then we can hop over here. We're good.
Thank you, John.
Yep, of course.
This
Thank
is
you,
a
John.
You're
first,
welcome.
and it will not be the last.
St. John.
Yeah, the one and only.
Guys,
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Menace, the Menace. We have a special. This is a first for us. This is I was going to say something really bad, but I'll stop myself. Look, I'm so proud.
Thank you.
I'm so proud.
Never stop yourself.
Yeah, I'm sure he would say that, Gabe. Welcome, Gabe, from the Reactionary Christian, and John Welnick from the Charismatic Calvanist. My John the Calvin guy that I always. Every time I refer to Ben about you, I'm saying John Calvin, that guy. So we're stoked to have both of you with us. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
We're going to talk about some stuff that I don't know too much about as far as like what these terms are. And I'd like to get into that here in a second. But remember, guys, if you're watching, and please remember to like, subscribe, share, hit up our friends, go follow them as well on their accounts. You guys can plug yourselves a little bit as we go through the night. But this is going to be a spicy one. And I'm super stoked to just learn and listen and laugh. And if you have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll get to them as soon as possible. We have a friend helping us, Miss Lynette. A lot of you guys who follow us know her, or at least from the chat. So thank you, Lynette, for being hands-on and helping a little bit. We're not paying her anything. So we're show her some love, guys.
Well, she's clearly living in submission, and
oh my gosh.
she
Yes.
wants to serve, as the Bible tells her to serve, and we love that, right?
Amen.
Amen. I'm
There's
sure
a reward. There's a reward for that.
And if
It's called eternal life. It's called salvation.
She'll be safe in childbearing.
Oh man, it's been too long.
I know, and here we are.
I know.
And misogyny in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
This is quicker than you normally get shadow banned, Ben.
Yeah, I know. It's all good. I was expecting it. Gabe's been muted on the live this whole time, just so you know. I'm kidding. Guys, like Dennis said, thank you for being here. Tonight's topic is Christian nationalism. Okay. And there are no better nationalists and misogynists that I would rather be speaking to this fine Thursday night than these 2 gentlemen above. Okay?
That's a lie. They just won't return your emails.
I reached out to a couple other guys.
We know you've cheated on us.
Okay. I will say I did want to get an opposing voice in the conversation. Like I have this Muslim dude, but I decided not to bring him on And then it was actually really hard to find Christians who oppose the idea of Christian nationalism. And this is new
Really?
to me. Yeah.
Oh,
This
I
is
can just
new
go
to
into my
me.
comment section, man.
Really?
Oh, dude, nerdy Christian, Chris Haylett, Christina, he hates it.
Oh, calling them out. Calling
Yeah,
them
all those guys who went through Bethel School of Ministry and now they're not Christians anymore. Those guys, they're all in his comments too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they're also likely homosexual.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
of course they don't want Christian
it comes with the
nationalism.
territory.
They'll be thrown off a
okay.
building.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Some correlation.
And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Christian nationalism is the topic for this evening. Hey, before we start, do you two want to give a little spiel about yourselves, just like 1 minute, or should we just hop right into it?
Spiel.
Well, my name is.
What if I gave an intro for Gabe and Gabe gave an intro for me?
Oh, I love
it.
it. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do
I
that.
love it.
All right, Gabe, you go first.
Okay. Well, we have with us here tonight John Welnick, the charismatic Calvinist. He is probably the only Calvinist online who can actually defend Calvinism and make it seem rational, and also defend the juxtaposition, the paradox of being a charismatic Calvinist, because most Calvinists are not charismatic and they're actually charismatic hunters. They consider themselves to be, John's actually on the run right now. He's 500 feet underground in a bunker, hiding from other Calvinists who are hunting him down because of his charismatic theology. But he's a wonderful person. He's a family man. He's married. Do you have a child? I think he has a child.
I do. I have a child.
He has a child, and probably many more to come. He's going to be a fruit. There's going to be a lot of fruit on that vine.
Progenitor of nations.
Progenitor of nations.
He's
a wonderful guy. He works with a ministry, I believe, a men's ministry in Phoenix, Arizona, and I'm jealous because Phoenix is incredible for the weather, of course. And
Amen.
That's all I got. Oh, and he is a social media maestro. Let's be honest. This guy, he hides his power levels at all times. Okay?
Did you see the post today? Did you see the post that he posted
That was
today?
a good post.
That was my favorite.
Okay, the post today
So
was
good.
that the cigar he was lighting a
Yes.
cigar, which is just straight out of the gate based, but lighting a cigar with a Book of Mormon that is on fire. I thought, I'm trying to think of a way to top that. It's peak level social media performance and peak level apologetics without words.
What a beautiful intro.
That was lovely.
That was lovely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Gabe. He is L'chaim Shalom. He is one of the foremost apologists of the Judaism faith. I met Gabe actually on our 4th trip to Israel together. We were praying at the Western Wall, and I said,
Hallelujah.
Who is that
Who's
gentleman?
that guy licking it? Who's the guy licking the wall?
Licking the wall.
That's too far.
He had a yarmulke with the Star of David on the back. It was really cool. So I went to compliment his yarmulke, and he said, "Shalom, brother." And from then on, we were messianic brothers in Christ, as well as in matzah. And Gabe is the Reactionary Christian. He does lots of videos, just pulling apart the lies and the myths of covenant theology and replacement theology. And really just teaching people, the truth of the third temple and the cows and stuff, the heifers and the red heifers. And Gabe lives in Franklin, outside of Franklin, somewhere in Franklin. I'll send the coordinates in the chat. For the drones. He has lovely parents. I've met both his parents. They are tremendous people. And they play the guitar. Well, your dad does. I don't know if your mom plays the guitar.
Yeah, they're both hippies. Of course they play guitar.
It was great. They preached at our church. Your dad did. They opened with a song, which was different for our church, and I loved it. It was awesome. And yeah. Oh, and I know his brother. And I don't think I've ever met your sister in person, but you were far nicer to me in mine, so I should say something nice about you.
No, I love it. This is all
Gabe
great. I love
hires
it, dude.
really good assistants with great names, and
True.
I will say Gabe honestly is probably one of the best senses of humor, one of the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. I can say that honestly. And I've had many
That's very
debates with
kind.
the man, and he's the only one I can debate. Well, there's a few that I debate with that actually stumps me every once in a while. So I appreciate that very much. So
That's very kind.
Gabe's a legend, and I love Gabe. So everyone go listen to Gabe.
That's awesome.
Thank you, John.
Absolutely.
I really like the approach you guys did there. Very loving, very brotherly. I am insulted, Gabe, that you said John is one of the best defenders of Calvinism you've ever come across. What about our 6-hour discussion 2 weeks ago, bro?
6 hours.
When I cleaned your
6
clock and totally knocked the
hours.
floor with your argument. Yeah, I remember that very clearly.
I don't remember any of that. I don't remember any of that.
I actually gave myself an award for winning that one.
You did?
Yeah, I went out and bought myself a triple garlic steak burger from Steak and Shake with the
that's nice.
beef tallow fries, and I ordered a large, and I remember eating it and salivating over it and just relishing every bite because of my victory, of my total scorched earth victory of our 6-hour conversation.
Well, tonight's not going to be 6 hours. We're probably going to be around 1.5 to 2. Okay. Unless you guys got a dip, just let me know. So Christian nationalism. Thank you for the intro, boys. The first time it came on my radar and I started taking it seriously was after the Charlie Kirk assassination and when they were doing the memorial service, okay, with the fireworks and the football stadiums and stuff, right? And the day after, Don Lemon, the I think he was like a CNN anchor at some point. I'm pretty sure he also graduated from Bethel and is no longer a Christian. But he said it was nothing short of a Christian nationalist rally. So I'm like, really? That's what Christian nationalism is? I always thought it was like something Nazis were a part of. So I realized, hey, if that's what Christian nationalism looks like, I'm game. Like, that's what I want for America. But like John said, there are people online who are pretty averse to it. And so I want us to have an open, honest, like informative discussion with these young men, okay, who are probably voting and making babies and all that about Christian nationalism, if it's good, if it's bad, if we should be for it, if we should be Christian nationalists ourselves, if that's like the goal for Christians in general. So off the bat, do one of you guys want to give a definition of Christian nationalism? Okay, I'm going to pick.
John.
I read Stephen Wolf's book on it, and he's got a much better definition than mine. But I would say a Christian nationalism, the ism indicates that it's an ideology, it's a epistemology of sorts, right? And what is that? It's that of a Christian nation. And so I would say to be a Christian nationalist means that you believe in the idea and the concept of a Christian nation. And what a Christian nation is a nation that is one nation truly actually under God, the Christian God, the capital G God, and a nation that operates and acts in the best interests exclusively of the Christian citizen, to the detriment and expense of all others, to please and to honor the Christian God, the Trinitarian God, at the expense and detriment of all other gods. So to be a Christian nationalist is to want to see that kind of nation, I believe. And yeah, that's a terrible definition, but that's off the cuff. That's what I got.
Gabe, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I agree with everything he just said. I would say the phrase Christian nationalist, you're dealing with two different words there and their intersection, and the intersection of politics and religion. And I think there's I would just say that there's basically a distinction I would draw between Christian nationalism and nationalism. I think nationalism itself is a natural inclination for most people living in any society. They want to have self-consciousness as a nation. They, a nation is a people of a group of people who share customs and who share values and who share language and other things. And so this group of people that want to identify as a nation have a right to communicate their shared values. And if they share religion, which generally speaking, most nations do, that are worth, calling nations, they have a right to express that religion through the state. And I also think that if they're deprived of expressing their religion through the state, what ends up happening time and time again is a sort of Caesaropapism, if you will, which is a long word, but basically it's basically the worship of the state takes place, where the state begins to people, I think Chesterton said this, that people worship the most powerful thing in the world, and the most powerful thing in the world is the state when you remove God from it. And so if you basically have this sort of secularism idea where we're not allowed to express our faith through the state it's supposed to be a naked public square. It's supposed to be totally secular. Well, then you're removing God and then just allowing the devil to come in, and the devil becomes the most powerful. I should say, people worship the most powerful thing in the world, and then they end up, if you remove God from the state, they just naturally end up worshiping the state. And the state becomes God. And so there's a bunch of different problems there, because you can only criticize the state by believing in God. You can only have an appeal to the issues of the state that you disagree with by appealing to a higher authority. Well, what is the higher authority than the state? It has to be religious. So this is why Thomas Jefferson, in his wisdom, even though that's a whole other rabbit trail, Saint Thomas Jefferson, I almost said Saint Thomas, no, the wrong Saint Thomas, but Thomas Jefferson did say that he opened his opening salvo in the Declaration of Independence was that rights come from the Creator. Rights are not something that government gives us. They are something that the government recognizes and is supposed to protect. But the rights, human rights, come from God, who is the giver of rights. So the appeal is always to a higher authority, and this actually grounds the ability to disagree with the state, so that when the state says that when Obama was telling the little sisters of the poor that they had to dispense contraceptives or whatever the argument was, I forget what that was, or whatever the disagreement is, there can always be a higher appeal than the state. And so if we acknowledge that there's a God and the state is subject to God, the job of the Christian nationalist is is basically to narrow down which God we mean. And as a Christian nationalist, I just say, look, it's the triune God, because the triune God is the true God. Every other God is a false God that does not recognize the triune God.
Well, when you talk about like the correct St. Thomas Aquinas, he talked about, what makes a law moral, what makes a law immoral. And the second that a law is immoral, it's no longer a just law. And you have no obligation to obey it. But how can you to claim a law is immoral? So right now we're seeing, people revolting against the law and order. They're rebelling against ICE, and they're attacking, law enforcement officers and people who are enforcing the law. And they're saying essentially what they're trying to say is that these laws that they are enforcing are immoral. And you have to ask yourself, okay, according to whose morality, who is the judge? And Doug Wilson, Pastor Doug Wilson, who's one of the kind of the leading Christian nationalists that wouldn't return Ben's email. He said, he says quite often that, there has to be if you're going to have a nation of law, if you're going to have a nation of morality, it's got to be whose morality. You have to define whose morality that you are coming under, because that's the whole point of a law. A law is legislated morality, and I hate this, man. It's such a single-digit IQ take when people say you can't legislate morality. All laws are morality legislated, because the law is saying this is wrong or this is right. Behave this way, don't behave that way, and that's morality. And morality has to be defined by what? Well, we would say as Christians, it's defined by the moral lawgiver. And if you're an atheist, then the question is, okay, you can't exist with morality. You have to borrow someone's morality. If you're not an atheist, if you belong to a different religion, then you would subscribe to that religion's sense of morality. So as a Christian nationalist, we live in this nation that's unfortunately, this plurality of religions and cultures. And I would say that the mission of the Christian nationalist is to make sure that the laws and the morality that are being legislated are that of the triune God. There's Muslims that want their laws legislated. There's Jewish people that want their laws legislated. There's, go down the list of religions. They all want their laws codified on the books. And I would say that's the job of the Christian to not only to oppose that, but then to activate civilly and to make sure that it is our laws that are being legislated. And, this is where I don't believe a Christian nationalist should believe in freedom of religion. Because freedom of religion as it's defined now is not the way the founders described it. The founders, you have to imagine here, put yourself actually in the shoes. And this is not what, American history books will teach you. But the United States, let's wind the clock back real fast to the Reformation, to 1517. Post-Reformation, you had very few camps of Protestants. You had Anglicans after the English Reformation. You had Lutherans, and you had the Reformed. And the Reformed were basically the Swiss. And then they became Presbyterians and et cetera. But Anglican, Lutheran, Reformed, those were your camps. That was it. There weren't 40,000 denominations. There weren't mega churches in every corner. Anglican, Lutheran, Reformed, pick your Protestant church. And the schismatic groups known as the Anabaptists, and there were others, but the Anabaptists are probably the largest of them. They were put down, they were silenced, they were persecuted, and rightfully so, because they decided.
John Mark Comer, okay?
Yeah,
John Mark Comer. Right.
The Anabaptists decided that they did not believe. Now, here's the interesting bit. Lutherans, Anglicans, Reformed, the one thing they all had in common is they were all magisterial. They all believed in the power of the state to enforce Christianity, the power of the state. Anabaptists said no. They said, we don't do that. And the Anabaptists in England were known as like the Congregationalists. And the Congregationalists were like your OG non-denom Christians. They said, we don't need a centralized authority. Each church is an authority unto itself. And the Church of England, persecuted them, rightfully so. They were rebellious to church authority. So they all get on boats and they come to America. We call them the Pilgrims. They were on the Mayflower, the Puritans. And we celebrate them as the founders of the nation, but theologically they were rebels and they were schismatics. Now fast forward to the time of the American Revolution, without a centralized church in America, it's chaos. It's reckless abandon. It's Puritans here, Methodists here, Episcopalians here, and there's no authority. There's no centralized government. So when the founders wrote into the law the freedom of religion, what they were writing in was the freedom of Christian religions, Christian denominations to practice and to coexist. They were not trying to protect an Islamic religion that wanted to practice here. They were not trying to protect Buddhists. They were not trying to protect Mormons. They were not trying to protect. They were saying, hey, I know there's like 10 different denominations of Christian theology here. You all have the right to practice your religion equally. That's what they meant. So as a Christian nationalist, I'm fine with that. Not in a perfect world, but the idea that Mohammedans are allowed to freely practice their religion in my city, I do not. I hate that. The fact that I look out my window and I see the steeple of a Mormon cult center, I hate that. And in a perfect world, the building would be burned down and the people would be sent away. But that is the government we live in, which is this liberal secular democracy. But that's a different tangent. That's a different rabbit trail. Yeah,
that's interesting. So you're saying that this country actually started off as Christian nationalist and has diverted from its original?
No, I mean, because this nation started off as a liberal secular democracy. When you talk about, like, Thomas Jefferson, for example, he was the worst of the bunch. He took the Christian Bible and he took scissors to the New Testament and he cut out all of the miracles of Jesus Christ, all the miraculous things that happened in the New Testament. And
so was he like a dispensationalist or something?
Yeah. Well, so Thomas Jefferson, he created
that would
this.
be if he added his own.
If he added his own. And Jefferson,
no, literally, the dispensationalists probably cut out all the parables because Jesus was
100%.
All those parables are talking about the Jews and how they rejected Jesus.
Hold on, Gabe. We'll get there. Okay.
20 minutes to the Jews.
John, go ahead.
And when Jefferson, he edited the Bible and he created this demonic, damnable, heretical text called the Philosophy of Jesus Christ, and he reduced Jesus Christ to a moral philosopher. And his buddy John Adams was not much better. So when you look at the signers of the Constitution, there's like 54 or 56 of them. If you take the signers of the Constitution and you remove those who owned human beings, you remove slave owners. Now, we're not talking about biblical slavery. We're talking about chattel slavery, which Leviticus condemns unto death. So you remove the slave owners, you remove the deists, you remove the Quaker. There was one Quaker, and you remove the Masons. You're left with 11 Christians. So people say this nation was founded by Christians and for Christians. It's a Christian nation. It's like, well, there were 11 of them who signed the Constitution, and they were outnumbered 4-1. So I don't know how that at the federal level. I don't know how that argument holds up. But
and yet, John, they were still down for Christians to be able to practice different forms of Christianity.
Correct. Well, so no, when they wrote, when they wrote in freedom of religion into the Bill of Rights, their idea was not an oppressive government trying to stifle religion and trying to just quench. They wanted to avoid a Church of America. That's what they were escaping. Some of them from England was, the Anabaptists and the Congregationalists and the Quakers. They were escaping the Church of England. All the founders wanted was they wanted to avoid magisterial Christianity. So Christians look at the First Amendment and we think this is this great thing, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, that protects our faith. Well, it was written to condemn our faith. It was written to prevent Christians from ever holding any kind of political power. It was written to undermine magisterial federal Christianity from day one. Now, much like, God in Egypt, I think that what the enemy is intended for evil, God is used for good. I absolutely think God has used that First Amendment to protect the Christian religion. But the intention of it from our founders from day one was to undermine magisterial Christianity, not the faith in and of itself, but the potential, the ability of the faith to hold political power.
So I think John and I might disagree here.
Good. Go on. Tell us more.
Well, I believe that the founding fathers were actually reptilian shapeshifters.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
And
Tell us
basically they were aliens that we don't actually understand. We're still like trying to figure out what they were. And if you come on my podcast, if you actually check out my podcast, okay, I get into all the details, and buy my book.
Nice.
Basically, I can't tell you all the details, but
join my Patreon.
The details are coming, but they're all behind a paywall.
Okay, Candace.
Okay, so
yeah,
the way I would just phrase my disagreement is, I do agree with John that the founding fathers did not envision a Christian federal government. However, the reasoning behind that, I think I would disagree with, only in the sense that, and I might be wrong on even disagreeing here. John may agree with me, but as I understand it, the 13 colonies in 1776 that became 13 states, they all had explicitly Christian, I think, except for New York State, actually, but they almost all had explicitly Christian constitutions, and they were all formed as republican forms of government, essentially by 1789 when the Articles of Federation were signed. So, as I understand it, the First Amendment was not created to get rid of religion. It was created to protect the religion of each state. So each state basically had their own religions, they had, and they were all Christian and explicitly so. And I think 8 out of the 12 that had explicit religions actually had established religions where the state would pay tax to that particular denomination. And so your tax dollars would go to the religion. So the notion that the United States was not a fundamentally Christian people, or that the states themselves were not actually Christian nationalist states, that's what I would push up against. I would say,
and I would agree with that. I think that, I mean, that's undeniable history that the state constitutions were Christian. It's written history. It's observable fact. The issue always just comes back to the federal headship of the government. Pardon the double entendre, federal headship. You look at like Benjamin Franklin, another one of the great Satanists of the United States history. He famously he did not want Christian churches to hold political power, and he was the one that introduced the no religious tests clause into the Constitution. So as many of these states had at the state level, to hold public office, to be a magistrate, you had to pass a religious test. You had to swear fealty to, depending on the state, what that was, maybe a member of domination, maybe it's just, the Apostles' Creed, whatever. They had their own various religious tests. At the federal level, Benjamin Franklin said, absolutely not. We're not doing that. And he wanted to go further with it, and he was held back. But the very least he got was the no religious tests clause in the Constitution, and as well as he was the author and the idea, not the author, but he was one of the biggest proponents behind the what's the word I'm looking for? The supremacy clause, where the Constitution trumps all state constitutions, and the federal Constitution, federal law trumps all state law. So no, I agree. I don't believe this was a Christian nation at its founding. I believe it was a nation of Christians. And you see that in the state constitutions. Unfortunately, at the federal level, it was literally and figuratively a swamp full of, lizard people, Satanists, who wanted religion without God. And that is the idea of a secular Enlightenment philosophy, the so-called Great Enlightenment, which is all of these guys were, the founders. They were all philosophers, right? And they were all students of Locke and Rousseau, and the idea behind the Enlightenment in Europe was that you could have religious morality divorced from the religious moral lawgiver. And we talked at the beginning here, there has to be a moral lawgiver for there to be a morality. Well, the Enlightenment said, absolutely not. We can do our own thing. We can have your morality. We don't need God. And they came up with this idea called common law, right? Where or natural law, where, this law exists just naturally. We have our morality naturally speaking. It doesn't come from anyone. It occurs naturally. You can observe it. And the whole idea is just divorcing God from religion. And then that's when we get a state religion. So has everyone here been to Washington, D.C.?
I have not.
And when you see very clearly walking around the Capitol is something known as the state religion, and it's disturbing, and it is true, as every Christian should be disturbed walking around the Capitol. Not only are all the buildings fashioned like Roman temples, literally intentionally fashioned like Roman temples. When you walk into the Capitol itself and you stand under the rotunda and you look up, you have a piece of artwork on the ceiling of the Capitol rotunda. I believe it's known as the Ascension, or the accession of George Washington, and it portrays George Washington as God, and he has liberty on his right hand, and he has other Greek figures on his left hand, and it's this idea that we can have a federal religion, and you have, instead of the Holy Spirit, you have the American eagle. And it's demonic, and you walk into it. And I remember the first time I visited the Capitol, I wasn't seeing through this lens. I was like, oh, cool. I love how it looks all neoclassical. And then I visited last year as, a super based, awesome, intelligent theologian. And I'm walking around going, what the hell? This is freaky. Why is there an obelisk, 300 feet tall in the middle of our Capitol? What the hell is that?
Super pagan.
So,
yeah, for sure.
Well, I would just respond to a couple things. I think, number one, I would say there are nuances here, and the nuances do change things a bit, because it's not that America was founded as a Christian people or a Christian nation. It was, I believe, founded as 13 Christian states. That's how I would. So I would say Christian. The states were Christian, and they were explicitly Christian. And the question of why they were federated as a secular federation. I think John makes a plausible argument. And a lot of what he said, I think, is very true. However, as it pertains to the Enlightenment and things like this, I would also say, however, that you also have, prior to the Enlightenment, 200 years of Reformation war. And these people, to understand their history, America didn't start in 1776. America started when Virginia, the first colony, was founded in 1570 or whatever, and then you have the Carolinas, under James the First, and then you have all these other puritanical state or colonies. So America is a very old nation as it pertains to 500 years ago. You have Virginia being founded, which is where Thomas Jefferson came from. And so he's kind of the tail end of a long tradition of people thinking about things and thinking intelligently about things. And he might be the corrupt end of it, but the point is that you have these people coming over from Europe, and what they experienced, many of them, what they came over for was religious freedom. They came over to establish colonies because they didn't want to be told what to do as it pertains to their version of Christianity. And I do think that we do have to, I call myself a Protestant realist. Okay. I believe in Protestant realism. And so what does that mean? It means that we have to look at things as they are. We can't project our wishful thinking upon ourselves as Protestants. We have to look at the fact that, Protestantism is very messy, and Protestantism was we were at war with each other in Europe for 150 years during the Reformation. And so you have these people who are all traumatized from their European experience coming into America saying, look, we just want to be left alone. Leave us alone. Let us have our own Christian version of Christianity. And then when you fast forward to where there's federation, where they finally agree on a political level, and they finally free themselves from a sort of imperialism, they say, okay, well, let's federate, but please still leave us alone. Like let's federate, but leave us alone on our ultimate values, on our religious values.
So here's the wild, because I agree with everything you just said, but here's the spicy question then. At what point did the federal government take over?
I believe after the Civil War, we agree there then too. Okay. and then I would say specifically, I do believe I think it's Brown versus Board of Education, which was a Supreme Court case in 1947, with the Supreme Court essentially at that point being all picked by FDR, and stacked the court with these genuinely secularist ideologues. They through Brown versus Board of Education, they struck down the right of a state to have its own religious identity. And from 1947 onwards, you have all this social stuff going on that is overhauling years of
FDR is a Marxist. His wife was a lesbian, but that, it truly was the Civil War. It was the idea where, the Confederate States of America posit basically, and keep in mind, 1860, or not even a century, past the revolution, our own revolution, we're within a lifetime to the War of 1812, where we had to fight to keep the revolution. So you have people still walking the streets who either, their dad was a Revolutionary War veteran. Their dad fought in the revolution. So we're in 1860. I mean, we're not America as we know it now. Okay. You could still go west and be scalped by an Indian. so this idea in 1860 where these states come forward and say, hey, here are our reasons. And the reasons sound like copy and pasted from the Declaration of Independence. Like, we don't feel like we're being represented. We don't feel like our federal government has our best interests at heart. We don't feel like we have, representation on our government. We would like to do our own thing, and we'd like to do it peacefully. Please just let us leave. And the federal government said, awesome, I'm going to raise an army and I'm going to invade. And we can moralize about chattel slavery, and which I think is a moral detestable evil. Absolutely, I think it's worthy of the death penalty. But if you separate that for a second, just look at geopolitically what's happening. You have a nation, a federation of states saying we would like to secede for what are at least economically valid reasons. And then you have a federal government invading, and the federal government did not invade because they believed slavery was a moral evil. Give me a break. Abraham Lincoln wanted to ship them all to the Caribbean when he was done, and that's a fact. So no,
the North all dumped their slaves into the South before the Civil War too.
Yeah, the North was
let's sell you our slaves and then declare war on you for slavery.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln was not some moral guy. He was maybe even gay. He suspended the Constitution. He suspended habeas.
Gay.
Abraham Lincoln.
Come on, everybody's a little bit gay.
Dude, I can't stand Lincoln. Lincoln put journalists in prison that wrote articles about him and he didn't like straight up, Zelensky style. He suspended habeas corpus. He would prosecute people without evidence of a crime. He would put people in jail indefinitely. He was a tyrant. He was definitionally a tyrant.
But he got it done.
If you set Delta,
you got to get the job done.
He got it. He got it done.
So he got it done, and the United States of America, the Republic, ended. The Republic ended in 1865, and from that point on, we were a federation. Essentially, we were what Russia is now. It's a federation. It's not a republic. So that's when it died. So this wonderful idea of Christian states coming together, and hey, if my state's gay, I can just leave and go to the Christian state. That died in 1865. That hope was gone, and from that point on, we became a world power. Woohoo! At the cost of our liberty, at the cost of actual freedom,
or maybe even identity.
Identity, oh, for sure, identity.
Okay.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating to realize. Sorry, I'll let you finish in a second, Ben. It's fascinating to think about that when the United States was confederated in 1789, it was the population of Chicago, I think, or was it? Yeah, or it was. Is it the population? Yeah.
Probably not the demographics, but the population.
It was like, yeah, fair enough. But it was like 2 million. It was like 2 million, 3 million people, and it's like. Now it's 350 million people. It's like
plus all the illegals.
Yeah.
Okay.
40 million of them.
To summarize, let me know if I understand this right. Okay. So when John received the Holy Spirit, a dove came upon him. But when Gabe received the Holy Spirit, it was a bald eagle in DC that came upon him.
The thing is that I think the bald eagle. Okay,
that's good.
Is great. I think it could be the greatest. Honestly, though, I love Rome. Period. I just love Rome. Even with the killing of the Christians and everything, it's like I still think Rome was based and awesome. And I think that, the church fathers even said, I think pretty much they agreed that like Rome was the best empire. It was the best political system. But the point is that this eagle thing comes from Rome. Like that's many times why in Europe, the Roman eagle is all over these European nations because it's our patrimony. It's our inheritance from being Roman
it's symbolic.
Our civilization has inherited the Roman way of life. That's why our jurisprudence is all in Latin. It's
our civilization is Roman. It's inherently Roman because Rome is the advent of Western society, and Rome took the philosophy of the Greeks and made it Christian. And they conquered the world. No, Rome is hella based. I got to visit York in England, and there's an enormous statue.
Yes, I've been to York.
Yeah, of where Constantine was made, and he wasn't like crowned emperor, but where he was when his father died and he became emperor.
Yeah,
he was on a campaign in York,
Yeah.
Which
Did you see
York now.
Hadrian's Wall? There's that big wall that goes through York, the Roman
Oh,
wall.
yeah. Oh, there's the big Mott and Bailey Tower as well. It's incredible. York, go visit York. York's incredible.
Honestly, I totally agree. If you want to see real English people doing real English things and not a bunch of, whatever.
Don't go to London.
Yeah.
Not a bunch of Allah Akbars. Go to York. They have tons of like you can go on like a bar crawl. Like there's like all these and there's this part in York where it literally looks like something out of Harry Potter. Not that I'm a huge Harry Potter fan.
Yeah, the shambles.
Yeah. That one.
Well, you know why that was? It's because you were taxed on your footprint of the building. So they built the buildings out like that because you could get a bigger house without getting taxed more.
That's amazing. Funny. That is so amazing. That
sounds like something a Romanian came up with.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Hey, so to try to seriously summarize, it's not necessarily that we were founded as a Christian nation by necessarily a bunch of Christians, but there was a chunk of the population that was all Christian. They all wanted religious freedom to be Christian. It wasn't founded under this idea that we're going to be importing tons of different religions and every single one of them should have the same freedoms as the Christians who may differ on certain topics but are still Christian.
Even the chief Satanist himself, Benjamin Franklin, his concept was a Methodist and an Episcopalian have equal political or civil power, and that's zero in his opinion, but they have equal in that they have none. He never would have imagined that a Mohammedan or a Hindu could come here and hold any kind of civil sway or any kind of civil power. The idea that we have, Ilhan Omar in office would be horrifying to one of them. I can't remember. I don't know who this guy is. There's some guy I saw on an Instagram reel the other day, a congressman who's a first generation Indian with a thick Indian accent, like you're ordering your lamb rogan Josh, and you can barely tell
what the taxi driver in here.
you can barely tell what he's saying because he's got such a thick, and it's not even the accent. The problem
don't wheeze the juice.
His English, and somebody could probably put in the chat who I'm talking about. I don't know his name, nor would I probably remember it if I.
Navinder Labinder. Yeah.
But it wasn't just his accent. It was the fact that his English was so poor, because an accent's one thing, but you can speak English, with if you have a grasp of the language, but his English was so bad. Articles were missing and the sentences were backwards. And it's like, man, if I were like, a dude named Dave living in this guy's, congressional district, and I can't even understand my own congressional representative, or then you go to Minnesota and you have congressmen speaking Somalian or whatever that language is called, that their nonsense language or whatever. And it's like, why should my congressman be speaking a different language than I speak? It's insane. And there should be, Matt Walsh said this, I didn't invent this idea, but there should be a law on the books that, any public office holder, any magistrate must speak the English language when they're doing anything publicly. It's insane to me that, so you go back to the founding of the country, there was never this idea that foreigners could come into the nation, foreigners in the sense of not Western, could come into the nation and hold any kind of political power whatsoever. That's insane. You never would have seen that before.
Yeah, it's interesting though, if we bring it to today's day and age, right? The conversation. It's interesting that there's no Muslim nationalism that is spoken of. Well, that is spoken of in the mainstream. There's no atheistic nationalism. There's no Jewish nationalism, even though we know there are all of these things, right?
Israel.
But what is spoken about ad nauseum is Christian nationalism, and how evil it is, and how dangerous it is, and how it's all white supremacists and Nazis, and right? It's only Christian nationalism that is seen as a negative in today's day and age. But interesting enough, like we just talked about, it seems like in the beginning, when this thing started, even if the founding fathers weren't necessarily all Christian, and some of them may have been Satanists, at least the intent was some sort of Christian nationalism, some sort of Christian country. So how has the idea of Christian nationalism, how has it become a negative thing? Something to be like despised and viewed as dangerous and even warred against culturally in like modern America and Europe.
Yeah, I would respond and say there are two types of people in America. There are Christians and anti-Christians. And the anti-Christians come in all different kinds of shades and colors and, you know, ideologies and all these things. But really it's as simple as like you're with Christ or you're against Christ. And especially when you have a long tradition of Christian culture. And I believe even our civilization, not just our nation, our civilization, European civilization, it is Christian. It is Western Christian civilization. It's not just, you know, they call it Western Civ. It's like, no, it's Western Christian civilization.
It's
everything
not Judeo-Christian.
Yeah. So how, you know, it's like, do you want to stay online? Do you want to get cut off? Do you want where do you want to go here? The point is that we have a Christian civilization and we have Christian culture, and we have a long tradition of Christians in this nation. And the antipathy and the antagonism is from people who don't want you to identify as a Christian, which is your ultimate identity, and which informs all of your politics, and it informs all your sociology.
It should.
And your you know, even your economics. You know, we should have Christian economics, a Christian understanding that usury is evil. But you know, you can look at how Bill Ackman responds to Trump just trying to lower the interest rates to 10%. You know, clearly these people are not Christian and they want usury. But the point is, I would just say that our identity we need to become more self-aware and self-conscious of our identity as Christians, because this is what is under attack. Ultimately, it's the ultimate thing that is under attack is your identity as a Christian, which informs everything about you. It should inform how you vote and how you live and how you behave and all these things about you, and the values that you have and the policies that you vote on, certainly the principles that you carry. And you have, and I would just say again, the opposition may identify as atheist or communist or Buddhist or Muslim or Jewish or any of these things. But the point is they're not Christian. You see, this is the one unifying great quality of the opposition, is that they are not Christian. And if they are not Christian, they are opposed to Christianity. And that's why I would say, I know that sounds really, you know, like fire breathing, but I will say this: John and I may differ in our application of this principle, because I will say that I don't necessarily mind the practice of other religions. What I mind is pluralism. I believe pluralism is the mind virus in our society, where
what do you mean by that?
Basically, the way I would define it is that all religions are treated as equal, and they're not. All religions are not equal, and we all are making truth claims. It's like saying all horse races are equal. Well, the whole point of being a racehorse is that you're trying to prove that your racehorse is not equal to the other racehorses. It's a race, right? So there's got to be a winner, and we pick Christianity. We want Christianity. We're putting our money on Christianity to be our winning racehorse. And pluralism just it egalitarianizes all religion. And that is the essence of liberalism. That's where liberalism really comes from. It treats religion as this sideshow, and it's all equally trash. It's all equally your private opinion. No, and it's all equal. You know, it's like no, it's not all equal. We want Christianity. Christianity is the best religion, and it's the religion that we believe the state should favor. So the way I would apply it is that the state should favor Christianity, although it monitors and allows the practice of other religions, as long as they are not blasphemous towards Christianity or creating obscenities, you know, towards
so my issue with that would be, would be a logic based one. Not that that wasn't a logical argument. I don't mean to imply that. But if you think of back to the definition of what's a Christian nation, what's Christian nationalism, looking out for the best interest of, so a government, when we talk about, Aquinas's, not specifically Aquinas's laws, but his logic, where he says if something stops being a legitimate, something stops doing its purpose, it stops being a legitimate thing, right? If it stops being moral, it's not a legitimate law. So if a government stops serving her citizens, it's not a legitimate government. A government's purpose is to protect and serve her citizens. That's the only purpose of a government: protect and serve her citizens. So a Christian government should protect and serve her citizens through the lens of Christian ethic, Christian morality, Christian epistemology. That being the case, as Christians, we know the only way for human life and flourishing to happen is through God's morality, is through God's way of doing life. So a Christian government would look at a Mohammedan doing life according to Allah and would say that's destructive to human life and flourishing. Or would look at a Hindu, or would look at, you go down the list of religions, that's destructive to human life flourishing. And as a government, my job is to protect my citizens and to bless my citizens. So I must stop that, because if you engage in that, you will go to hell. And it's not that we compel faith. But we do absolutely abolish paganism, and we abolish idolatry, and and that's what all those religions are. They're pagan idolaters. So that's where I would respond with, in terms of an argument against freedom of religion, is saying that no, if you know that as a Christian government, the Christian God is the triune God, is the one true God, then the worship of an idol will send you to hell. So we're not going to let you do that. Now, whether or not you have legitimate saving faith, that's between you and God. But if you're practicing another religion, that's a visible sign that, hey, you're on a short track there, and we're going to cut that off. Which is so I see where Gabe's coming from. I just think logically you run into a wall where you start saying, yeah, I want a Christian government, but that allows the practice of Islam. It's like, well, I don't know how at that point it would stop being a Christian government, in my opinion, or at least a truly,
because
Christian
of representation government. Is that what you mean? Like there would just be too many Muslims?
Well, no, but like if I'm a Christian, so think of it from an evangelical point of view, not capital E, but lowercase e, evangelical point of view. People will say that if you really are a Christian, you should be evangelizing, because it's like, if you actually believe you'll go to hell without faith in Jesus Christ, that should light a fire. Like, I don't want my neighbor to burn. I mean, my neighbor's kind of annoying, but most people don't want their neighbors to burn. So you want to get in front of them and you want to stop that. There's an urgency there. So from a government, if a government is truly a Christian government, they should have the same impetus, the same drive. Like, I don't want my people to suffer. And if you serve the Islamic idol, you will suffer, not just on this side, not just on that side of eternity, but on this side of eternity, you're going to be suffering, because the only way to human life and flourishing is through the Christian faith. So that's where I would say it's like, if you allow people to self-destruct. So for example, think of it from a legislative point of view. Obviously, a Christian nation would outlaw sodomy and homosexuality. And the idea behind that is not that we're against personal freedom. It's that, hey, that choice of personal freedom is self-destructive, and you are destroying yourself. And you could even, and people will say, well, if it's just in there, if it doesn't affect you, let's pick a sin that doesn't affect anybody else. Let's pretend there's a sin, for starters, that doesn't affect anyone else. Okay, what if it's like AI pornography? Okay, and no one's involved, no one is victimized in this scenario, this fictional world. Okay, even in that instance, nobody's a victim. You're on your own. You're just hurting yourself, but you're hurting yourself. You're destroying yourself. And a truly Christian government should want to stop that. Hey, we don't want you to hurt yourself. We want you to be healthy.
Yeah,
so
I agree.
If someone's Islamic, then it's like, hey, you're hurting yourself on this side of eternity. And that would be my argument against a truly Christian government.
It's the time for prayer for me. I apologize.
It's the time of day. But back to your question, Ben, and I'll be quick because I've been monologuing for a minute here, of why is Christian nationalism viewed so negatively? It goes back. So there's a sociologist named Aaron Renn. Aaron Renn, and he has this landmark paper he wrote recently talking about the three eras of Christian culture in the United States, and he calls them negative world, neutral world, and positive world. And positive world, we're talking pre-90s. It's the moral majority. It's Rich Wilkerson Sr. It's Jerry Falwell Sr. Right? It's like Christians have, Jimmy Carter was a Sunday school teacher, right? It's Christians. Being a Christian is a good thing for you socially. Every president had to be a Christian, right? They also, 100% I'm a Christian. Even Obama, when he was elected, said he was a Christian, right? In the 90s, we have the legalization, or rather the decriminalization of homosexuality. So that's the point where Aaron Renn identifies as we're switching from positive world to a neutral world. Okay, now in the 90s, the government has just come out and decriminalized something that God has criminalized. So the government has placed itself over God. Okay, so morally, socially speaking, being a Christian in the 90s, it's no longer a virtue, but it's also not a vice. It's like, cool, you're a Christian, whatever. Like, I'm not, whatever. You can run for office as like an agnostic. It's not a big deal. You don't have to profess. There's no religious test, whatever. And that continues well into the 2000s until 2014 with the Obergefell decision. Okay, so now being a Christian is a negative. So now when you're running for office and you say I'm a Christian, Mike Johnson had this problem, right? Mike Johnson said he's a Christian and everyone had a problem with that. Well, wait, what does that mean? It was like when JFK ran for office as a Catholic. What does that mean? Does that mean you're going to like serve the Pope? Well, so now if you say you're a Christian, you're running for office, does that mean you're going to serve God and not the government? So now being a Christian, we're in this negative world of Christianity where being a Christian is seen as a negative thing. It's an evil thing. It's a bad thing. It's not just a neutral. It's no longer a positive thing. So translate that to Christian nationalism. Okay, if being a Christian is a bad thing, being a Christian nationalist means bringing your Christianity to the public square, the civil square. Well, that's a terrible thing. Back to Mike Johnson. They said, hey, you're a Christian nationalist. That's a problem because we want to live our life the way we want to live.
Everybody else can do it, though. Everybody else can do it. The Muslims are praised. The flag of Minnesota will be changed to represent the Somali community. Everybody else can do it, but just not Christians. So why is it that Christianity is targeted? They don't target each other. They all just point the finger at us.
Well, of course not. So they're demons. Their demons talk to each other. How come how are they all working together? How come they're not shooting each other? Because their demons are on the same side. They might not be.
The demons are texting each other.
They're texting each other. It's a good point.
That's what I'm trying to get to. Okay. Yeah. Is how is it that it seems as if it's okay for everybody else to do it, but when Christians say, hey, we actually see our religion as being the most favorable for humans to thrive, the best system to live under. And on top of all of that, all the benefits that we have here on this earth as a result of being Christian, right? Then we also have the eternal benefits. Yeah. So we see those things. And if we want those things for the people around us, we're Nazis.
I think there's an apologetics.
Dangerous.
The evangelical church, capital E evangelical church, has an apologetics crisis. Nobody can articulate not their faith, but they can't articulate the Christian worldview in any kind of effective way because it's love forward, it's love central, it's love focused. There's very few people who can articulate, hey, it's not just about come as you are. God hates who you are. And Jesus died because of who you are. So stop being who you are, please, because who you are is going to hell. But the evangelical church it doesn't understand that because, again, the evangelical church was built around this model from Bill Hybels in the 70s of basically corporate growth, growing a company, right? What do the people want? And it took the leader out of the pulpit and put the leader in the survey, in the pews. So even the evangelical church, I don't believe is leading any kind of revival. The evangelical church itself needs a reformation. I don't think the Protestant church is coming back. The Protestant church is lying in its grave with its husband and lesbian girlfriend, right? But the evangelical church, they're not doing much better. So what's the future for Christianity in America? I don't think it's Catholicism. Love my Catholic friends, but I don't think it's Catholicism. They're far too socially liberal. I believe it's a revival. It's a reformation of evangelicalism. It's bringing back what was good about Protestantism, injecting it into what's good about evangelicalism, writing some statements of faith, for gosh sakes, and moving forward with a battleship instead of the cruise ship that all these non-denominational megachurches are, prancing around with.
What about, okay, now we're talking about solutions. But by the way, I just want to say, as a therapist, I couldn't disagree more. You need to love yourself. Okay. Look at me, everyone. Okay. You need to love yourself. Okay. When he says that you are not supposed to be yourself, we need to love ourselves. Okay. And number one. Number two, now that we're talking about,
I made you big
what's
screen
going on with this? What's going on with
big
this
screen to make sure that everybody can look into your eyes.
I love that. Can you zoom it too? Right into my face. So what I would say is, as it pertains to solutions, I would say, like, what's wrong? And I want John Welnick to definitely respond, because John, what would you say would be wrong with, for example, Tennessee, the state that I live in? The largest denomination in Tennessee is the Southern Baptist Convention.
Yeah, the slave owners.
The slave owners. Okay. Yeah. So what would be your objection to a potential solution, if not applying Christian nationalism to a federal level? What if we applied it to a state level, as it was prior to board of or even just as it was in 1776, you could say. Well, what if we just took all, like, what if we just said, the state legislature in Tennessee, the governor, whatever, they're just like, all right, because we have the majority of Christians in the state of Tennessee are Southern Baptist Convention Christians, we are going to turn to the Southern Baptist Convention and favor them. So if you love the Southern Baptist Convention, come live in Tennessee, because this state is going to favor the Southern Baptist Convention and their edicts,
Yeah. That works insofar as until you get to any kind of great moral evil that the federal government has legalized. That's the problem. Is okay. So I love that idea, and then the great state of Tennessee with the slave owning Baptist Convention says, hey, we would like to outlaw homosexuality in the state. Sodomy is now a crime, and if you're caught, you go to jail. The federal government comes in and says, hey, you can't do that because we said it's okay. And Benjamin Franklin's supremacy clause says that, we're your daddy. So I love that idea. You can just only take that so far down the field until you run into some pretty steep federal walls.
Well, yeah, fair enough. But I think that the Supreme Court has already proven that these cases that were overturned prior, like the state laws that were on the books prior to these moral issues, can be referred to again, as in what happened with abortion. All the state laws that were prohibiting abortion were overturned in 1972 or 3 or whenever it was. Yeah. And then the Supreme Court says, all right, you never mind. We were just messing around for the last 50 years. It was legal gobbledygook. Okay. Sorry. Sorry,
guys.
65 million babies later. Sorry.
What do annoying evangelicals always say? They say, make heaven crowded. I think the Supreme Court just had the same idea. They're trying to make heaven as crowded as possible over the last 60 years.
But it's like, the Supreme Court overturns this case, right? So now they send it back down to the states. What if the federal government just starts doing that again and saying, what? We're going to get out of the religion business. Totally. We're going to get out of every business that has to do with moral issues. We're going to allow states to determine their own their own religion, and then determine their own morality based upon their religion. What if they got back to that?
That'd be great.
And then would you oppose the state of Tennessee favoring the Southern Baptist Convention?
No, I mean, I think in this, look, there's only so many things we could do. In a perfect world, we'd be some form of monarchy, right? Because here's the idea is, yeah, absolutely. Because look at, we pray God's kingdom come, God's will be done. Okay. God's kingdom. What's a kingdom? A kingdom's a form of government. Okay. God's kingdom come. What does God's kingdom look like? Does it look like a bunch of gay guys going into a building to vote on something? No, there's no, you won't be voting in heaven. Right. Shocking, news
That's
alert.
tyranny. That's
some of you-
tyranny.
Some of you Americans, right? Like, just in case you didn't know this, you won't be voting on any decisions in heaven. Zero.
I don't want to go then.
Zero. Heaven is ruled by a dictator. Okay.
Hey, will I be able to have my gun?
Yeah, there you go.
Can I have my entire 50,000 gun collection? My gun collection underground. Can I have it?
You're going to be raptured. You're going to be raptured with your gun vaults, Gabe.
The gun vaults are going.
I think some things are going to heaven. Paul says some things might survive the fire. So
let's hope the guns do.
I think my M1 Garand's going,
but what Gabe is describing would be ideal, right? But at the moment, with the way the books are, that's not okay. And we're banned. And we're banned.
Oh, well.
Off of YouTube.
I got mine's right here too. So. No, it's an antique. It's fine.
It's an antique.
It's non-firing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It's from the pre-Revolutionary War days.
Yeah,
it's a musket.
But oh man, you're making me nervous, John. I've seen way too many videos of certain cultures of people that make accidents with those things. Hey, but as the books are currently written, the laws that are currently on the books, there we go. Hey, we can't do that. We can't have states that are broken off by specific like religions.
Well, this is hold on. Again, this is the problem that I'm trying to point. Oh my goodness gracious.
What?
America is incredible. America is an incredible place.
The Canadian nervous.
Yeah, this is the thing, is that it's like we're going off on the Taliban, and essentially we have a Taliban warrior on the chat. Okay.
Stop, John.
This is like we are living like
dude.
This guy is Irka Durking, okay, right on on live stream. But the point is,
somebody just said it's non-firing, immediately followed by John cycling it. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so all I'm saying is you have if the beginning of the problems with these state issues began, obviously we can't go back to the Civil War issue, but the Southerners in the chat are like, yes, we can. But the point is, let's just take Everson versus Board of Education in 1947, okay, where they were talking about school buses being used for religious purposes or whatever. The point is, that's when I think this idea of substantial due process began, which has been used as this ideology, this means by which they overturned anti-pornography laws. They overturned anti-contraception laws. They overturned abortion with this phrase. They've overturned sodomy with this phrase, the sodomy laws. So what I'm saying is, if you start going back and saying what the Supreme Court said in the Supreme Court case where they overturned Roe, the Roe, precedent, I would just say, it's possible to go, if the Supreme Court is the governing body, if the Supreme Court is the governing body that began this issue, then the Supreme Court needs to be brought back to its senses, and the Supreme Court needs to stop being it needs to stop being a form of judicial fiat, a form of legislative government, which is not just
it's not just the Supreme Court. I mean, it's federal judges, right? You had this happen. What was it, last month? One of the federal judges who held up Trump was born in another country. Was born in India. So it's like, hold on, we have a foreigner now who holds more power over the president of the United States.
Damn.
So we go back to so there's two solutions here, right? One's revolution, one's reformation, because I don't believe personally that you can that there reaches a point where, okay, there's a crack in the foundation, Let's try to, we'll get the fancy jacks that lift the house up. Let's try to put some cement in the cracks. Let's try to fix it. And there reaches a point where it's like, hey, if I want to build this building tall enough, I'm going to have to just throw out the foundation and pour a new one. So that's the revolution, route, right? Is there's only so far you can go with the system that was designed to be non-magisterial. Whatever whoever you land on this issue with the founders, there's some people I know that get very upset with me for saying, my opinions about the founding fathers, because they buy hook, line, and sinker all the propaganda. And look, even those folks, even the hardcore jingoists, who think Benjamin Franklin was a God-fearing, church-attending Christian, right? Even those people have to admit that this country was founded intentionally unmagisterial. That was the point. Even the Becca book, for those of you homeschoolers, the Becca book Christian history books will say Church of England bad, religious freedom good. So, okay, if we were founded from the get-go to not be a magisterial country, not magisterial Christianity as a nation, how close can you get to magisterial Christianity then in any kind of reformed model? So I think what Gabe's positing is a great idea, and I think let's go back as much as we can to the states being Christian and holding Christian beliefs and et cetera, et cetera. But we get to a point, okay, what about a religious test? Can't do that. The federal government says we can't, and that's not something the Supreme Court decided. That's something the founders decided. So it's like you keep hitting a ceiling over and over and over again, where it's like, man, at least in England, you've got as bad as it's gotten there, you have at least a framework that with the right certain Cromwell minded folks, you can go back to a Christian nation. And I just think there, for example, in England, I think it just has to get bad to a certain point that something like that will happen. I don't believe that not to change the subject, but I don't believe that England can really go on as it is. It's either going to fall apart or there's going to be a revolution. And unfortunately, the Irish will probably be leading it. But that's a different story for a different day.
The other thing is falling apart isn't necessarily wrong in the sense that
Rome fell.
Well, yeah, it did. It 100% did. But I would just say balkanization is really what I mean. Balkanization isn't wrong. You have, I don't know the history of Romania really well, but I would assume that there was probably a point in time when Romania was governed sort of imperially before it was nationalistic.
No, we were governed by Dracula. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm just saying before it was, I don't know if it was a monarchy. Was it a monarchy before it was a nation or a republic?
Eastern Europe's not a real place.
Whatever. All I'm saying is you have, you can have small nations that emerge. And at this point, like Tennessee could become its own nation. Tennessee, Tennessee has its own legislature.
Texas has its own power grid. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying, it's like if Tennessee became its own nation, well, then there you go. There's the answer right there. Yeah. At some point, when does the United States become Europe? That's my question.
Very soon. And that's the problem. And it's interesting not to just, whine about another problem without offering a solution. But somebody said this argument, speaking of lesbian Marxists, Chris Haylett, the nerdy Christian, last year before he blocked me, he over many arguments, asked the question like, hey, Japan full of Japanese people, that's okay? Yeah, that's fine. All right. India full of Indians, that's okay? Yeah, okay, cool. America, why can't it be full of Americans? Well, no, that's not right. That's bad. And that's what we get back to is, okay, ask yourself, all right, if I'm an Indian, I have a home country where my people ethnically, historically came from. If I'm Japanese, I have that. If I'm Chinese, I have that. You go down the list of ethnicities of the people of color. They have a place they can go where they can claim, this is where I'm native to, or rather, this is where my ancestors are native to. But white people don't get that. We're not allowed that. There's nowhere I can go and assert my historical ancestral heritage. This is where I belong. Get out. Right? Because for me, that's England, right? Like I'm a descendant of William the Conqueror. Right.
Yeah, you are.
So originally that would have been France, right? So can I go to France and say, look, here's my pedigree, grandfather, William the Conqueror. I am French. get out. I can't do that. But if you are Native American, you can do that. If you go down the list of, so that's, and not to make it like this weird racial conversation, but there's this it's an element that's kind of the elephant in the room with all of these conservative conversations, is at what point do we have to address the elephant in the room and say, hey, people of European descent, Caucasian descent, have a unified culture, and we happen to look similar. It's not about our ethnicity, but we happen to look similar, and we've adopted some people into our culture, and that's fine. You can be adopted into the culture if you truly want to adopt into the culture. But we're in this salad bowl, right? We're not a melting pot. We're a salad bowl in America, and everyone retains their identity. Everyone retains their hyphenated identity. And when you think of like, the late 20th century, early 21st century, with the migration from Europe and things like that, people came here and they were still Irish and they were still Italian and they had their neighborhoods, but they became American and they identified as American and they were proud to be American and they called themselves American. My mom came here from England through Canada in the 90s, and she never let people call her a hyphenated Canadian American or English American. I don't even know what that would be. She was an American, right? And
Anglo-American.
Anglo-American. And my father, his grandparents came here from Prussia. His great grandparents came here from Prussia. So we
I
all
knew you had war criminals in your family history. I knew it.
Come on. No. Let's start
just for the record, World War I was fought against Prussia. America fought against Prussia in World War I. Just saying. Okay. Not throwing any shade on your family lineage. Your war criminals.
The unification of Germany happened before that. But anyways, where was it going with this? But here's the big thing. We have to be able to make a cohesive argument that's well articulated that says ethnically European people can have their own nations, and that's okay, and that's not racist. And that's where you run into a wall where it's like, well, why? What's wrong with other people? Like, look, hey, if you want to come to this country and you're not ethnically European, that's fine, but you have to adopt our culture. You have to.
Yeah, I think it's also important, just like the facts of the matter, is that the first immigration bill in America, in American history, was I believe it was the Naturalization Act of 1790. Mm-hmm. That Naturalization Act specifically said that it wanted European and only European immigrants. And that was on the books until like the 1950s, I think.
Yeah.
So you have 150 years of immigration. We're a nation of immigrants. Yeah, but they're all from Europe.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is it's really easy for Europeans to get along as it pertains to the melting pot idea.
They're all from Western, because they share Western society, Western culture,
they're
Western
all
values,
Western ethics. They're all Christian.
It's like. But see, and then we talk about like radical solutions. Okay, here's the radical solution. What did the president do during the Great Depression? He took, what was it, like 2 million, 1 million, 2 million, 3 million Mexican Americans, and he denaturalized them and he sent them back to Mexico. These are people who were first generation children of Mexicans. They were born in America. They were Americans. They were not green card holders. They were not permanent residents. They were born Americans. And he denaturalized them. He stripped their citizenship and he sent them back because they were only first generation. Because the idea was, we are going into this immense economic crisis as a nation. We cannot sustain. And it was looking, where can we trim the fat? Hey, these people have only been here for a generation. Go back. We don't have room for you guys. Sorry.
Did they have, like, during that depressive state, did they have like 50 trillion in debt or something like that? Like, what was the
Great Depression in the late 20s?
What was the problem? Like, were they 50 trillion in debt? Like
stock market crash? Oh yeah, but that's the thing is we are in many ways worse off. But these are the radical solutions you need to start taking, because there are people who have been given citizenship that shouldn't have citizenship. You see on like the I can't remember the name of the podcast where he gets all the mindless OnlyFans models at a table and asks them like simple math questions. Is it the Whatever podcast? He had one. I saw a clip the other day where he asked this gal who's like Brazilian or something, like, if America went to war with Brazil, who would you side with? She's like, oh, Brazil, it's my country. But she's an American citizen. So those are the people where it's like, you need to start taking aggressive action at denaturalizing, not deporting, denaturalizing, taking people who have American citizenship, stripping their citizenship and sending them back to their country of origin if you don't want to be American. And look, you don't even have to get into the people who've only been here a generation but love the country. If you can just go down the list of people who've said stupid things online, like, I hate this country, get them out. Dude, people who have been here for 5, 6, 7 generations and they're blocking streets with their Honda Pilot, get them out. Take their citizenship, ship them off. I don't care where. Figure out where they came from and send them back. I don't care. But those are the things you need to do. If we need to be a nation of people that identify culturally, that identify religiously, that identify historically, and if we're not, we will cease to be a nation. Define nation. Nation is a place with borders and a people with a shared cultural heritage. We don't have any of that right now. We have some borders now, thanks to Trump, which will last for another 20 minutes until he's gone. We do not have a shared cultural heritage. We do not have a shared religion. This nation will go the way of Europe unless something drastically happens.
Yeah. Do you think that it's every Christian's responsibility to actually be a Christian nationalist and to call for Christianity to be, what would you say? Like the state religion? What would you say?
We're not there yet. We can't be under the system that we have, inherited. But yeah, I think if you are a Christian, you are called to be a Christian nationalist. You are called to put people into office who have a authentic, saving Christian faith and are going to codify Christian morals, principles, Christian values. There's that one guy in Florida who wants to start taxing OnlyFans models 50% of their income. That's what we need to start doing. Shut it down. Shut it down. And if you are not going to activate civilly as a Christian, you are going to stand in front of a holy God and you are going to be judged for, I gave you this nation. You had this civil power to steward. You had this vote to steward. How did you steward it? What did you do with it? Oh, you voted for people that caused human suffering. Okay. We have to start thinking like that.
Yeah.
We have to stop thinking like our Anabaptist ancestors and start thinking like our Lutheran ancestors, like our Anglican ancestors.
Well, I would also just interject and say, what's the alternative to that question? Right. So the alternative is to have a political philosophy that is godless.
Right.
Because
which is where we're at.
Yeah, because even if you're patriotic, which you should be patriotic, it's a natural instinct to be patriotic. You see this in sports fans and all that stuff. This is, if you're going to be patriotic, you have to think about, okay, well, what am I patriotic for? What kind of a nation am I patriotic for? Well, if it doesn't have Christ at the center, if it doesn't have Christ at the source, then honestly, you will turn into Nazi Germany, because Nazi Germany, that was the whole point. They exalted the state over religion. They exalted the state as the arbiter of everything, that the state was, German national identity was everything. And it didn't include Christ. Christ was not supreme, and they didn't worship Christ. They were neo-pagans. And they were drawing from all this pagan mythology in their past, and they weren't drawing from Christ and Christian culture. And so you will, the only alternative to Christian nationalism is really pagan nationalism, and which leads to more suffering, which leads to idolatry, which leads to, and really that's the argument against pluralism. Pluralism is idolatry. And I would say we are in this phase of sort of like this middle stage of like making a decision. Which direction are we going to go? We're at the fork in the road, where are we going to go? Are we going to go towards Christ and Christian identity, Christian consciousness, where Christ is supreme and we worship Christ? I think a great example of this is the state of Poland. Look at Poland. They worship Christ and they exalt Christ. Now, are they perfect? No. Is any Christian state perfect? No. Are we even aiming for a perfect state? No, not until heaven, but we can at least aim for a good state, and a good state.
If we are going to pray his kingdom come, we've got to start acting like it.
100%.
Yeah. Bro, as Christians, I don't understand what you would be other than a Christian nationalist. What is the alternative as a Christian?
Well, it's the worship. again, it's this enlightenment ideal of self. It's this idea that liberty is a virtue and not a vice. Liberty is not a virtue. Liberty is a vice. Free will is not a virtue. It's a vice. There's no liberty in heaven. There's no free will in heaven. But this is what we worship as Americans. We worship liberty.
That's true.
We worship liberty.
Well, it's really
our
a false,
idol.
but even I would say, John, it's a false conception of liberty.
Fair.
The liberation of the Enlightenment was a false conception. It was a demonic Luciferian conception which is do as thou wilt, not do as thou ought. The ought is the true freedom. To live as we ought is the true freedom.
Correct, because we have freedom in Christ.
To live a life of virtue is the true freedom, because St. Augustine said a man has as many masters as he has vices. So to be truly liberated is to be virtuous, where you choose the chaste life. You choose the virtuous life. You are not mastered by your passion. You are not mastered by vice. So this is the true conception of freedom that is anti-enlightenment. Yes, I totally agree. But do you see what I'm saying? There's a nuance in that definition.
That's a fair nuance, because we do have freedom in Christ. It's just not freedom as we identify it now. But that's where you're going to have Christians. This is what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years or so now. When I kind of got woke to Christian nationalism. I used to hate Christian nationalism, and then I realized what am I doing? And this is what I've been trying to change people's minds.
He was the persecutor.
But this is what I've been trying to change people's minds on, is that, look, if a state is going to exhibit its authority, use its power, that power has to come from somewhere, and the power comes from the power that's over the state, and that is God. Okay, if there's a God over the state, which God is that? Okay, it's the Christian God. Okay, well then what are we doing? Are we accountable to that Christian God? Is what we're doing right now pissing that God off? Yeah, I think so. So when it all comes back to, okay, freedom, liberty, trying to break these Americans' minds, these Americans who worship this demonic, satanic counterfeit of true freedom, of true, they think liberty and freedom is just choice. Do as thou wilt, right? They don't see, true freedom is freedom in Christ, is freedom from your vice, is freedom from your sin. So they're positing the completely wrong thing, this Americanized Christianity. So this is where I say evangelicalism has an apologetics problem, because we can't articulate this belief in any kind of compelling way to people, right? Why would I want to, what? Hold on, I have to stop. What? And that's why people don't like Christian nationalism. I'm going to come and tell you, no, you can't do that. I'm going to get in your bedroom and say, yeah, that's killing you. That's killing you. And it's destroying our community. So stop.
Well, at least get it out of the public view.
Public view first. Absolutely. But so, man, I lost track with the question here, but I think that Poland, it's funny, you talk to Western Europeans, especially, the English, and they hate on Eastern Europe, and they make jokes about Eastern Europe. And Eastern Europe right now is the only one's not gay. Eastern Europe is the only one's doing anything right. Eastern Europe is like truly the last bastion of Rome, if you can call it that. But here in America, man, we need it's reform or die. So back to your question, do Christians have an obligation to be Christian nationalists? Yeah, they do, or they'll die. Those are your options. Do you want to worship the state? Because that's what's coming. That's what's already here. Like I said, go to DC, and you'll see the idolatry to the state. The state wants you to worship it. Look
at what they did during COVID.
Oh yeah,
right. Like,
absolutely.
It was all like proto tyranny. It was all just there for everybody to see. They shut churches down, and they kept strip clubs open, or abortion clinics, or whatever the state thought was, desirable for its satanic followers.
But I think the evangelical operates under this flawed idea that we will change the culture from the church, in the sense that don't go out into the world, don't change they view the world as downstream of the church, and that's just, it's not true anymore. That was true in centuries past. Culture is downstream of the church. Church is downstream of the culture at this point. So you can get people into the church, and you can get people saved, and the culture is going to stay exactly the same way. You have to get into the culture, and you have to figure out what is upstream. What's that? Where's this water coming from? And I have to get to the source, and I have to clean the source so that everything downstream of the source will be potable, right? So these evangelicals think we'll just get people into church, we'll save them, and then God will sanctify them, and then eventually we'll fix the culture. Like, no, you need to get into the office that makes the laws, and you need to change the laws, and you need to make the pagans stop behaving the way they're behaving. You need to point people back towards the truth. People say, well, why would you want, a fake Christianity, right? Like you see, like in the 1950s, caricature of the 1950s, right, where everything's Christian, and were we actually all Christian? Of course not. Of course not. But we all operated under these Christian laws and values. What would you rather have? Would you rather live in North Korea, where that if someone's Christian, they're really legitimately Christian, but life is a living hell? Or would you rather live in like 1955 suburbia, where not everyone who says they're a Christian might actually be a Christian, but life's pretty freaking good? Like, and we go back to human life and flourishing. If somebody follows God's laws, God's precepts, God's ways, and they don't have saving faith, they're still going to live a blessed life, because God blesses his commandments, which is why people could join the Israelites, these foreigners, these outsiders could be circumcised and join the nation of Israel, even though they weren't Israelites. And because if you followed God's laws, if you followed God's precepts, God blesses his commandments. He doesn't necessarily bless people. He blesses his laws and his commandments. And if you put yourself under those laws and under those commandments, you will live a blessed life. That's historical fact. It's theological fact. It's biblical fact. So we need to start saying, hey guys, it's not about just trying to save enough people that the culture eventually starts to shift the other way. It's about starting to push the culture back and then allowing the salvations to come out of that. But I would rather live here in a 1955 Americana, where everyone's beautiful and lovely and kind and pseudo-Christian, than in North Korea. Yeah, the lines are clear. You know who's actually a Christian, and your life's a living hell, and your kids are in a living hell, and life sucks. Like, no, I want God's kingdom come now on earth as it is in heaven now.
Yeah, my model for what I imagine Christian nationalism looks like is 1950s Americana. Okay, that should be everybody's goal. That was the golden era in freaking America, right? It's either that or Amish.
I think that's like the Protestant kind of myth. I use that as a caricature. The idea is that never existed. In fact, 1950s America. What I think of when I think of a Christian nationalism, like the perfect Christian nation, I think of like pre-industrial revolution, like England, where people live in agrarian societies. It's community centered. It's community focused, and you can still you visit all the little different villages in England, and they have their butcher, and they have their market, and they have their church, and that is a man, wouldn't we all love to live in that? Get out of the urban centers, man, and just agrarian communities where you know everyone, where the pastor knows everyone, where there's accountability, there's civil accountability, there's social accountability, there's theological accountability. We're in this evil suburban urban age now, where everyone's anonymous and everyone's evil and everyone's selfish. And we're never going to get back to that. Let me be real. We're never going to get back to that.
That's not true. But I agree. It's kind of monstrous and inhuman. But I would say my perfect decade would have been the 1250s. I believe that I want to get back. Listen, I want to get back to the 50s. The 12.
Bro, you look like you're from the 1250s.
When St. Thomas Aquinas roamed the earth like a dinosaur, eating people.
Guys, did you hear what Richard the Lionheart's up to today?
Richard the Lionheart rode into Jerusalem and slaughtered.
Did you hear about that new Charlemagne guy? Wait, no, that was the 800s. Never mind.
So, in my mind,
the 13th century is the greatest century.
Oh God!
Period.
Yeah, with no running water. Hey, in my
mind,
the water ran. The water absolutely ran. Rivers weren't invented in the 20th century.
Yeah, bro. And it's running water's overrated.
Had rivers in their house. Hey, 1950s Americana.
Bro, they were building. Bro, they were building Gothic cathedrals, bro,
without running water.
I mean, I'm just saying, it's like the technology was. They
had half the women aren't opiates.
Or Amish.
Yeah, and there was no.
Those are our two options. Those
and
are
you'd marry you'd marry a virgin. You know, I'm just saying, it's like I'll trade the. You know,
but hey, I'll
trade the flat screen television for a virgin. Okay.
Okay,
let's try to land this plane.
Some dudes give 3 goats for a virgin.
You got 4 autistic retards in the cockpit of a 747, all trying to land at the same time.
And one has Tourette's. Hey,
And Dennis is just like eating the in-flight snack in the back.
Oh, I'm enjoying this so much. This is so good.
hey, okay. But John, you said something that I've been saying for a bit now, that the problem with the conservative right is we don't conserve anything, or at least we haven't conserved anything up until now. Okay. And what happens politically is the left will come into power and they'll freaking swing the pendulum so hard to the left, culturally and socially and morally, right? To where you cut off kids' dicks and people are like, this is a great idea. And then you get a few people who are like, hey, this isn't a really good idea. We should stop this. And the left's like, you guys are crazy. You're evil. What are you, Nazis? Okay. Yeah. Then the right comes into power and they don't swing that pendulum hard right.
Well, whose fault is that? It's not the fault of the politicians.
All they do is barely undo a few of the things that the left did when they swung it left.
We always want to blame the politicians because it takes the responsibility out of our own hands. Oh man, those Republicans, they never do. Here's the problem. And I saw this when what was the abortion decision? It escapes me at this point, was overturned a few years ago. I saw pastors posting on their social medias that now is the time for charity. Now is the time for grace, to extend an olive branch. Don't celebrate. Don't dance on the ashes.
What?
Don't rub it in people's faces. And the idea was, nobody said don't celebrate, but they said it was essentially don't rub it in people's faces. Have some charity. Have some sensitivity. People are going through a lot right now. You don't know what they're going through. They just lost something that was very important to them.
Dude, deport these guys.
But that's the heart of the anti-Christian nationalists.
Yeah, deport them.
They lead with their heart and not with their head. So when you talk about Republicans get into power, they don't do anything, they don't change anything. It's because the people who put them there aren't demanding they do so. If we had a group of people who comes and don't dance on the ashes, codify it, make it illegal, send anyone to the gallows who disagrees, if you had those people voting in people, we wouldn't have this problem. I don't blame the politicians. They're lizard people. They're going to do whatever their master says. We need to start being their master. And we're not. We always want to blame the politicians because then we don't have to blame ourselves. It's the people in your church. It's your pastor. It's their fault. That's where you start.
Well, it's where the locus of power is. And it's right. The citizens have the power. And so it's they ought to control these things and they ought to vote properly. And John's 100% right. It's the politicians are really just, puppets. They should be puppets for the people. The people should be the ones controlling them, but the paymasters.
How do we get this ball rolling? Is there a ball already rolling? Am I just late to this Christian nationalist game? What's the move? Because everybody panders, especially the Republican nominee, always pandering to the Christians and evangelicals. Okay. But then they get into power. And like I said, no actions, no follow through, never swings the pendulum hard to the right to conserve anything. Okay. What's the difference between for example, Calvary Chapel, Jack Hibbs style pastor who tells his congregation, hey, vote Republican, and Christian nationalism? What's the difference between those two?
I don't mean to, my intention is not to start naming names and criticizing people. But
do it.
But Jack Hibbs is a terrible person. He's Luciferian.
No. Surely,
he's a global elitist. Okay, I'm trying to.
I didn't bring up Jack Hibbs because he's a Luciferian, my Tourette's friend up here.
Also, real quick,
I don't even know who this Jack Hibbs guy is, but honestly, he sounds terrible.
Oh my god.
Also, I probably have to land this plane here in about the next 5 to 8 minutes, so I can go say goodnight to my daughter. But
and then come right back.
Well, no, because I want to hang out with my wife, man. So I see guys
the Romanians
like that.
have no off button. The Romanians literally they will go all night. They don't even care about their wife and children.
So
tell a Romanian, hey, I gotta go. Like, my wife and children. The Romanians are like, I don't care.
She cooking.
She deal with herself. Trust me.
Do it for me.
She survived. I survived. Ceausescu. She will survive. Okay. Okay, keep going, John.
Let John answer.
I'll stay with the Romanians. Okay, I'm just staying with you guys.
I
Hell
think that gosh, I even lost the Jack Hibbs types, right?
Okay, what's the difference between pastors? Take any pastor you want, not just Jack Hibbs.
Yeah.
In a Calvary Chapel style setting or evangelical church setting, saying we need to vote for the Republican candidate. What's the difference between this model and actual Christian nationalism?
Well, it's the theology behind it. Why are we voting for them? What are we trying to see? What's the outcome? I have no problem with those guys because I mean I might not agree with the why, but I agree with the what. I might not agree with the how, but I agree with the what. You know, it's a net positive. It's like, you know, even Mormons, they're demonic, evil, satanic cultists, but you know, they're pro-life. I view them as co-belligerents, not allies, but co-belligerents. They're fighting in the same fight, and they're at least pushing in the same direction on certain issues, not on all issues, but on certain issues. And I think that in particular what makes Mormons some of the most insidious evil of all, because they cosplay as your ally. And anyways, not to get down that road, but the difference, the Calvary Church and the true Christian nationalism, it's just an IQ difference. I don't mean that in an insulting way, but it's an IQ difference. It's you know, you go read Stephen Wolfe and understand, like, okay, the level here of Christian nationalism, this is thought out. There is a philosophy behind this. There's a deep, intense theology. There's a history behind this, versus just go vote for the Republican. So go vote for the Republican is helpful, but let's level up a little bit here. Let's get out of the 101 into the 202 or the 303, the 404, and understand why we're voting for the Republican. What are we trying to see happen by voting for the Republican? But so there's a bit of a difference in the what, but at least, or in the how, but at least the what is a net positive.
Yeah, but is it? Because look where we're at. We've been voting for the Republican every time he's in power, and we're still where we're at. So this is what I'm trying to get to: is how do we actually make a damn difference, and how do we actually see the things we've just discussed for the past hour and a half?
Yeah.
Well, like I said,
dude, I would say understand the things that you want the most, and if those things are not on the ticket, then abstain. Nobody has to vote. Nobody's being forced to vote. This isn't Australia, okay?
Yeah, but then the evil wins.
No, that's not true, because
Really?
no, it's not true, because it's a choice. Well, if you have two candidates that are both evil, it's a choice between two evils. So the point is, if you have a choice between two candidates, which the party system is essentially giving you,
right,
you have to choose and say, okay, well, here's a candidate who is pro-abortion, and here's another candidate who is not pro-abortion but pro-gay marriage. Well, why would I want to choose between those two things? Why can't I get a candidate who represents my values as a Christian? So I would just say, frustrate the process, throw a wrench into the works until you get what you want. And that sort of resilience and political defiance is really what's going to create a Christian state, and really tell the politicians what you want. Oh, I'm not going to vote for Vivek Ramaswamy. Why? Sure. Because Vivek Ramaswamy is not a Christian. We want Christians. We don't want Indians who are not Christians, who worship human gods. America is not, American values. If I was an American in Ohio, I would say, no, I want a Christian candidate who represents Christian values. And I don't want an Indian candidate who represents Hindu values. And that's what you're getting with Vivek, even though he says, well, no, Christian American identities, all these other things, fiscal responsibility or whatnot. It's like, no, you're getting a dude who is not a Christian and who's not going to believe in Christian values and support Christian values and Christian identity. And then we don't want you, bro. So that, and how do you do that? You don't vote or vote. Vote for another candidate.
I would disagree with that. And
here we go.
Well, because here's the thing: is somebody, a pastor I deeply respect, put in the chat, and I agree with him. On my chat, I don't know if you guys can all see the same thing.
We can't. No.
Oh, okay.
Is it Jack Hibbs? Is it Jack Hibbs?
No, it's not Jack Hibbs. I said I deeply respect.
So John Hagee.
Just keep going down the list of anyway. Abstaining. It's not a valid. Abstaining is only a valid choice when neither candidate is a moral evil, right? And I understand what you're saying. If Vivek Ramaswamy, they're evil. I understand theologically, okay, like Mitt Romney, you could say theologically make the case he's evil, but at the end of the day, you really have to vote for the lesser of two evils and work out your fear and suffering.
Bro, that's bullcrap.
No, it's
Why?
not, because it's the same it's the same argument they made for the Never Trumpers. It's the exact same argument.
With you, John. I agree with you. I agree. I'm not saying that voting between the lesser of two evils is always wrong. I'm saying that there are points where if you're like, no, I don't like any of these genuinely, and I look at them as almost equally evil, then what do you do with that? You see what I'm saying? Like when the lesser of two evils is so nuanced
just as
that
evil,
you're getting into centimeters of difference, I would just say, look, honestly, I don't want the thing.
Vote for the white dude then.
Well, I'm just saying,
but
a vote is a voice that is only positive. It's not negative. So to have a negative voice and say, no, I don't want this, is to abstain. And I would just say, that when politicians are like, oh my goodness, all these people are abstaining, what are we going to do? Well, then they put their heads together like, well, we got to give the people what they want, or else
because the right can't win without the evangelical vote, right?
Correct.
So if we stood up together and made change, then they would actually make changes. We would find the right candidate.
I agree, and I also believe that pastors should be getting involved in politics as it pertains to rallying people. You know, I don't know if this makes me like a Coughlinite or something like that, but I think that, you know, you have these historically influential evangelical type leaders, are Christian leaders that say, you know what, I'm going to tell all the people in my diocese not to vote for you, or I'm going to tell all the people, and it's like, good, you know, like get dangerous again, dangerous.
Okay,
Bros should be getting into this. Not saying that I'm just saying, hold on. I'm not saying that pastors should be endorsing candidates. I'm not saying that necessarily. Okay. I'm not even saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying on principle, I don't have a problem with pastors getting up there and saying, you know what? I don't see how the current parties are, you know, really that different from each other. I don't see like on a moral level. I think pastors should be making comments like that to stir things up as influencers. I agree.
Steward the influence you have, but that's kind of like that's something you do during the primaries. When it comes down to it, it's like, okay, we got to vote for someone.
Yeah.
We got to vote for someone. And
no, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
No, man. We don't.
Otherwise, you're going back to the what was it? The McMullen losers that were all voting for him in 2016.
Bro, who cares? Listen, if we lose 1 4-year cycle, who cares? We see that happen every 4 to 8 years anyway. If we
hold on, what 1 4-year cycle?
There's a lot.
There's a lot that could happen in a 4-year cycle.
Sure, we just witnessed it. Okay, and here we are today complaining about it. If evangelicals band together, or all Christians, Catholics, everybody included, all Christians, if our calling is to be Christian nationalist, and we don't have a Christian nationalist Republican candidate, okay, and Christians said across the board, we will not vote for this Republican candidate because he is not a Christian nationalist, an outspoken Christian nationalist, okay? Let's lose. Let's freaking lose. So what if we lose? We lose every 4 to 8 years anyway.
I think the point
until the Republican Party puts up Christian nationalists, Christians should probably stop voting.
Well, look, we're arguing over means here, right? So I would just say the point, the goal, the telos here should be to have that the people who are Christian have their way and express themselves, and the will of the people is done. I would say that's the goal, and that's what everything should be aimed at, that the will of the people is done. And hopefully the will of the people is also the will of the Lord.
I hear where you're coming from, Ben. I
want to go hard.
I think there's a couple problems. The first problem with that is that requires, and that's a scenario with an evangelical coalition, or not even that, of a Christian coalition that doesn't exist and will never exist and can never exist. So it's a great idea.
I mean,
It's just-
TPUSA is doing it, but for the wrong cause.
Right. But uniting theological, that's an idea that could never exist. With at least anything I'm seeing now. If somebody wants to go be the next Charlie Kirk, go for it. But the bigger idea here is that 4 years is much bigger stakes than I think you're willing to. You're saying, oh yeah, but here we are complaining about it. We're fine. Like, well, no. If Trump lost, you're talking Supreme Court justices. You're talking tens of millions of innocent children. You're talking world wars. I think
we're talking war with Iran.
We're talking everything that we're actually literally watching happen today.
But no, I'm saying these no. We're not seeing happen today. We're not seeing happen. I think we're a lot closer to disaster than anyone really realizes, because kind of like the nothing big ever happens crew. But I think if just imagine, okay, we have Tim Walz, the guy who is corrupt to the core. We've got Kamala Harris, who's put her and 4 IQ together and you get 4 IQ. That would have been disastrous to the point of like reckoning and bringing in the end of this nation.
Almost as if a dude in a diaper who is cognitively declined into the basement, like, was president. Almost as if that were to happen. Like, you can't get worse than what we experienced under Biden, bro.
You can. Like what's worse? You absolutely can.
You can absolutely.
Yeah.
What's worse is it's a relative scale.
It'll get worse before it gets worse. The guy who's in cognitive decline in diapers, he's not running anything. That country was run by committee for 4 years. What's worse than that is a Gavin Newsom. What's worse than that is an intelligent man who has an agenda.
You think the committee will stop running things when Gavin Newsom's around?
No, but I think there will be when they have a charismatic leader at the head of it. Absolutely, yeah. I think that's going to be far more dangerous.
We are where we are because the Republican candidate has always been a puss. Okay, we've never swung the pendulum back to the right. We've always only ever let the left win and push culture more and more to the left. Okay, again, I'm sure we all agree to that, right?
Ben, I would just say, Ben, these are all questions.
So how do we stop that?
These are questions about issues that are important. So there's an argument to be made that John is articulating very well, that he is saying these are the important issues to me, and I think that if I had to choose between a candidate that doesn't represent these issues, and not only doesn't represent them, but actually is antagonistic towards them, then these values of mine, then I'm going to choose the guy who's at least relatively close to the values that I have. So there is what I'm saying is that this is arguable, right? This is not something that is like whether a person and every single person has to be convinced on their own. So I would just say this is the principle here is that people should vote according to their conscience and according to their values, and they should know what those values are, and they should be Christian values. Outside of that, you're getting into very murky territory as once you open who you should vote for.
And once you open up that argument of purity tests, there's no reason for it to stop anywhere. And this is the problem, is when you get into the purity tests. Okay, I mean, we all like Trump here, but he didn't pass any purity tests. And when he talked, what Gabe
Trump
mentioned,
is a saint. What are you talking about?
There's
Mother Teresa, and then there's Trump right underneath.
So Gabe said something earlier. He said, well, when the two candidates are so close and evil, like the difference is centimeters, there were people who said that, not at least honestly said that about Trump and Kamala. I argued with one of them on Ruslan's show over a year ago, where he said Trump and Kamala, they're both evil, and in my mind, they're equivalent. In my mind, I see no difference between the two, because Kamala does these evil things and Trump does different evil things, and in my mind, they're neck and neck for evil. So once you start getting into the equivocation of morality, it's just you get into these purity tests, and nobody will ever pass them, because what might be a Christian nationalist for you or for me is Trump. I think Trump is as close as a Christian nationalist as we ever had. But if
he's literally not even Christian.
It doesn't matter. He's as close as we've ever had.
Matter.
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't.
It's about the value system, bro.
How are we Christian nationalists that are led by somebody who is not a Christian?
Charlemagne didn't even want to be emperor. The Pope crowned him against his will.
Constantine wasn't baptized until his deathbed.
That's fine. Those were Christian. You would say those are Christian nationalists that you guys want to emulate. Those are the empires you want to emulate in America.
Yeah.
Aren't we aiming for like idealism here with a Christian nationalist system?
Perfection isn't see, this is what he's talking about, this sort of purity spiraling. Perfection isn't the point here. We're talking about a good society and a relative scale of achievement towards a Christian society.
Incrementalism.
And I totally agree with this.
30 minutes ago, we're talking about it's either going to be revolution or reformation.
Yeah.
Right. And so
let's ask
revolution is pretty close.
Let's ask ourselves how we got here.
How much longer do we have to keep reforming, even though nothing is really changing?
But let's think things are changing. Roe v. Wade was overturned. That was unheard. That was huge.
That's unbelievably massive.
Things are changing. And look, how do we get ourselves here? From you said the 1950s is like your peak, is your meta
Amish.
Right, or Amish, sure. Nobody woke up in 1960 and said, hey guys, let's put implants in dudes and call them trans women and let's chop the nuts out. Nobody just decided that. They started with a little bit. We had the sex revolution, we had Woodstock, we had free love. They would a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and now we're here. They incrementalized their way here. So when you're saying, hey, I want to stop, and all of a sudden I'm going to say, righteous or not, or I'm not voting for you. I want Charlemagne, or I'm not voting for you. You're never going to have it. You got to start working in the right direction. You have to start pushing.
Yeah. Now I would add to that, there are big issues and small issues. And sanity is being able to see the big issues as big issues and small issues as small issues. So I would say abortion is a big issue. I can't conscionably vote for a pro-abortion candidate. And correct. I think John would agree that he probably wouldn't do that either.
Nope.
And I also think that the Republican Party has clued in on that, and they've realized we're not going to get the evangelical vote unless we do this thing and we give them abortion. We give them not abortion, but anti-abortion candidates.
Yeah.
So this is many times how it works. But what I'm saying is, okay, so then how did we get to the point where the Republican Party was saying, okay, well, we have to only run, anti-abortion candidates because a pro-abortion candidate is not going to get the evangelical vote. Well, the evangelical vote has to be decisive on these issues, identifying these issues as major issues, and fighting for them, and vocally saying, we will not vote for you unless you basically change your policies, your voting platform to fit into our rubric of understanding.
Yeah. Well, we always make it about the president. We always make it about the president and the presidential election. And it starts in your community. It starts at the city council. It starts at your school board.
I agree.
It starts at the local level. So you want to be a Christian nationalist, go run for your school board. Go run for your HOA, dude. Go run for the things people think they forget about. Go run for your school board. Go run for your HOA. Go run for your local city council. Get activated locally, and those things cascade upwards.
100%.
Like I said, the evangelicals got it wrong. The church is not the locus of culture. The church is downstream of culture. The church is drinking the water that people are taking a dump in. So we need to figure out, okay, what is the locus? Let's get back there and let's start cleaning the water. And the locus starts at your local community level. So forget about the president for a second and purity test for politicians. Get into local office where you're at. This is what Charlie Kirk was all about. This is what Turning Point's all about. Get activated, run for local office where you can, and start making differences. So instead of whining and complaining that like, oh, he's not Christian enough for me, well, then go run. And I can't ever don't be president. Go get
I can't. I was born in Romania.
Oh,
you can't run locally?
No, for president.
No, president.
Oh, okay.
President.
Yeah, but I mean,
I know. I totally agree.
You could be the governor of whatever crazy state you live in.
Dracuvania. No, I totally agree. Local is where it's at. Local is where it's at, and where we need to fight first and foremost. Because if we learn anything from COVID, is that local is what made all the difference in your actual practical life.
Correct.
The federal could suck it.
I saw that in Arizona, dude. It was the difference between cities. If you're in Phoenix,
100%.
It's masks, it's everything shut down. You drive an hour and a half north to Prescott, this little mountain town, and it's like nothing's happening. It's like
same exact thing in Idaho. Boise, all locked down, shops masked up, everything. I'm not driving an hour and a half. I'm driving 3 minutes down the road, and you're in a different city, and it's completely different. So we've seen that. We know what a big difference local makes. And Dennis, we've talked for the past 3 years about how important it is to be involved local.
Dennis actually said something
3 years ago.
Oh.
The conversation thus far was about big picture stuff. That's why I was talking
that's
about
fair.
president. So I just want to go as hard as possible. And I think that if I know we're not going to get perfection, I know it's not going to work out the way we're the way I would like, necessarily, but I don't think it's a bad idea to throw out perfection, to aim for it and see what we get along the way. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah, absolutely. Have the end goal in mind.
Well, aiming
that's
for
what I'm saying.
Aiming for perfection is kind of the utopian problem, right?
That's fine. Aim for it and be happy with what you get along the way. At least we've got like a freaking target, something that we're aiming for. That target could literally be Christ and his kingdom. Okay. Yeah. But what are we going to get along the way from that, on the way to that? And in my opinion, the evangelical, or not even evangelical, the Christian voting base in America is larger than any voting base. It's larger than like the liberal voting base, bro. So if I know it doesn't exist, we're talking about solutions, right? If there was a movement that would be able to aggregate Christian vote in America, all of it.
Yeah.
And the demand is we want a leader that hits these points.
Yeah.
And anybody that does not, we are not going to vote for them. I wonder if they put up a candidate that hits those points.
Well, and here's the thing too.
Those points have to be articulated, bro.
You got to be articulated.
I know that's what we're doing, players.
Well, and it's starting with, okay, what do you actually have? Do we have, influence over our politicians? Maybe not. Who knows? You've got influence over your pastor. And Pastor Ryan Visconti, a good friend of mine, he says that 3 or 4. He said it in the chat earlier. He said 3 or 4 pastors could affect the outcome of a state, right, or the country, really.
Sure.
3 or 4 pastors in any state, and it's 100% true.
For sure.
If you get these mega church pastors who are responsible for each one of them anywhere between 10 and 20,000 people, you get those people to vote. You get 20,000 people to vote, dude. You could swing every single state with 20,000 people. And this is why I have such a problem with the Pope, because if the Pope said to every single illegal immigrant,
the Protestant Pope, because that's
the real Pope,
never mind.
Because here's the thing. We know for a fact most illegal immigrants come from South America, and most of them are Catholic. So if the Pope came out and said, "Hey, guys, illegal immigration, I'm making it a mortal sin. Go back, or you're in mortal sin. You don't get the Eucharist until you go back. We're done. We're done with that." You would get like half of them leaving tomorrow, but he won't do that. So the pastors need to use the power they have, the influence they have, whether that's social media influence as celebrity pastors, whether that's ecclesiological influence as the Pope. They need to start using their power and to not just preach sermons, but to affect the culture. It drives me nuts, man.
Well, we lost Catholics, dude. Post Vatican II Catholicism is kind of fake and gay. Like you gotta kind of realize
it's also charitable for the first time ever.
Well, the problem is that I'd rather take the uncharitable Catholicism where like the popes were like there's no salvation outside of the church. I'd rather that guy who actually has teeth and who's actually kind of militant than the guy who's like, faking gay. Like, we're Care Bears. I love you. And all the Barney, and it's just like, I can't, it's not going to happen because post-Vatican II Catholicism has just defanged Catholicism. There's no militancy to that faith anymore.
Bro,
even though they have the they have the weapons grade theology, they're just not pressing buttons.
Yeah,
they're not launching anything.
Yeah,
the drones are all in storage.
Yeah, but then if they got them back, Gabe, they'd find your house.
No, dude, Catholics love me.
Catholics like me for the most part. I'm nice.
They probably love you too.
Hey, John.
We're 2 hours in.
John, how are you doing, buddy?
I already missed bedtime. You guys made me
Aw.
miss my daughter's bedtime.
Hey, so we're good.
That's actually
Let's keep rolling.
That's actually wrong.
Dude, she'll forgive
actually
you.
wrong.
I feel
She'll
bad
forgive
now.
you.
Yeah.
Nah, don't worry.
Yeah.
Our parents were never around growing up. We turned out just fine. Who cares? Hey,
We should land this plane now. We're a couple hours in.
what
Yeah.
plane?
The one we're all
Yeah.
fighting for the control of right now.
All right, let's land the plane. Ben, Dennis.
Okay, hold on. Should we go?
Oh,
to
it's your show.
questions?
You could keep going forever. I'm letting you know.
Or
I
John
gotta get
can
going
leave. John can
Yeah.
leave, and I can stay with the Romos.
Okay. Hold on.
Pizza male.
There's like two more questions here.
Okay.
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 Are we? I've had this debate before with some friends locally here. Are we allowed? Well, not allowed. Are we ever called as Christians to get politically violent?
Called? What do you define
don't know.
political violence?
Bro, I don't know. I
Define
keep seeing.
God
I
call
keep
you on the
seeing.
phone.
I keep seeing these memes. Yes. Hello, Jesus. Hey, I keep seeing these memes. Bring back the Crusades. Bring back the Crusades.
The
right?
Crusades weren't political violence. The Crusades were just war. Because I hear political violence, I think Charlie Kirk getting murdered. I think beating up a bunch of Antifa kids at a protest.
Facts.
Which
Faith.
that might be
Faith.
valid. More people need to get beat up. But the Crusades weren't political violence. That was a just war. That was it was like an international scale war.
So that was what? Christians pushing back against Muslim invasion, right?
Correct. Yeah.
How is that different than Minnesota, London?
No,
Texas?
I think Christians should protest. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
absolutely think
You
Christians should
can't-
protest.
Yeah, you can't take authority into your own hands. That's the issue.
Yeah.
It's the difference between a citizen, taking
vigilante. Yeah.
Exactly. It's the total difference between a vigilante form of justice and the government or the police force going in, or the Delta Force
Yeah.
in.
Civil
and-
disobedience is 100% valid under certain circumstances.
And you guys
absolutely.
are saying Crusaders were the government imposing?
Well, they were the kings. Yeah,
The
the
church.
Okay.
Crusades were led by kings, bro.
The
Okay,
Crusades
okay.
are a perfect example of what happens when a pastor uses his influence justly.
I would agree.
The pastor says, "Hey guys, I want the Holy Land back. Go take it back for me," and they did. And that's what pastors can do when they grow a pair.
Well,
So
yeah, and
as long
defending
as
the
Jack Hibbs calls for political violence.
No,
I
it
was
was
gonna bring it back to Jack.
no, it's
I'm just
basically.
kidding, I'm kidding.
But they were also defending Eastern Byzantium, right? They were defending the Eastern.
Well, I think that was a
Christian
later
Empire.
crusade. Yeah, because the Eastern Roman Empire asked for help, and they didn't really deserve it because they were kind of turds. But anyways, that's
Well,
how
they
it
were
is.
brothers.
So-
It's no more brother wars.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's use London as an example. Okay.
Mm.
If the government of London has been co-opted, taken over, I don't know what you want to call it, by the enemy. And if the enemy is imposing their laws against the natives and against the Christians and against the cultural heritage that they have, right? At what point and who has to do it? Is it a pastor who has to call for some sort of
Well, I think it's the
pushback,
point. I think
violence?
it's the point where, like, you look in Australia right now, and they've just passed a
There
law,
you go.
notified it, where the government can arrest pastors now for
Yep.
hate speech.
Yep.
So you're seeing like Andrew Sajra and his brother, who are big celebrity influencers down there, and they have a church. And if they say that Islam is a false religion, that alone, Islam is a false religion. That's hate speech in Australia. They'll be arrested for it. And that's the point where, you need to call for some kind of civil disobedience. You need to get people in the streets, shutting down the government, shutting down the streets, not being violent, not like looting businesses, but being a nuisance and protesting and not going home. And if the police tell you to go home, you don't go home. And that's the level of civil disobedience where, you do need to activate, and you do need to do something about it. Like in Iran right now, you're seeing the Iranian revolution. Get in the streets, and will there be violence? Probably. But it's you got to think.
Get the
what
CIA in the streets.
Get the CIA in the streets. But like, why are you? What,
do the
what
color
do you,
revolution?
but you reach the point where it's like the government is mandating something that's ungodly, and I can't do that. And I just don't believe in this wussy, weak Christianity that would rather be the underground church in North Korea than the Holy Roman Empire. I just don't believe in that. I think that's gay. And I think that's for weak men, and I think it's for gay men.
Yeah. Okay. But in Australia,
That's so offensive.
What's the difference between, or what's the line between the civil disobedience and crusades? Is it just that a pastor has to call for it?
Well, that's the thing, man. Like
You just said it's just war.
It's just war. Well, so you're
but I'm talking about violence. He's talking about civil disobedience.
Somebody
the crusade
and,
as the example.
And this is where takes will differ on this. But yeah, dude, someone shows up to my police show up to my church to arrest my pastor. Well, that's not happening. That's not happening. And something's going to happen here. Someone's getting shot or someone's going home, and you guys get to pick who it. And that's that you have to know in your heart of hearts that you're making the right call on that one, because you might be dying for that decision. But if we're at the point where the federal government, again in Australia, is saying, hey, we're going to start arresting pastors now, you have a moment, you have an opportunity, you have a window where you can still do something before it basically turns into North Korea. And are you going to do something in that window, or are you going to just let it happen? And they're at a turning point. And we're not there in America, absolutely not there in America yet. But no, I absolutely think violent revolution can be godly. It just depends on the situation. I don't think our revolution was godly. I don't think all of their reasons they gave were a total crock. Declaration of Independence, they were all historically false. They just wanted independence and money. But that's a different argument. Yeah, man, I think there's a time and a place for civil disobedience, and it might be violent. I don't think we're there yet in America.
Gabe, did you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean,
is somebody's mom in the background calling them to bed or something?
I'm hearing the Muslim call to prayer.
That's
actually probably me. That's probably me. I apologize, guys.
Is it really a Muslim call to prayer?
I do the Muslim call to prayer, every day.
No, what is that?
What?
Somebody said they had like a mosque outside their window earlier. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah. Did it sound like?
I don't know what I was hearing. Sorry. I don't know if you guys heard it.
Did it sound like someone suffering from a terrible disease? Yeah. That was Muslim call to prayer. So I would just say, I mean, I think the Australian thing's terrible, but at the same time, you're dealing with a country that has lost all of its sense of Christian identity. So is that the Muslim call to prayer?
The Lion King.
Is there a difference?
That's what he uses.
This is what they were trying to do. Dude, the Lion King was a psyop.
It's
MK Ultra. Dude,
it was a guitar.
You can't, dude. They actually interviewed the animators for the Lion King, and they actually worked in MK Ultra.
Fact.
It's all been documented. It's behind my paywall, but it's all been documented. But it's behind my paywall.
They flew in on Egyptian planes.
Again, that's that are behind my paywall. But so Australia, you're dealing with these nations that have lost their Christian identity, and therefore they've lost their national identity.
Yeah.
And so they've, it's like this sort of Stockholm syndrome that they're under, where they obey the commands of their oppressors. And
well, I mean, Australia that's how they've always been. They've always been a subjugated people ever since.
Well, they were Christian, dude. They were Christian they were Christian forever, man. Their early legislation in the turn of the century was very Christian, very.
But they're not. What I mean is their national identity is that of subjugation, as prisoners. I mean, Australia started when they could no longer ship prisoners and felons to the United States when the revolution started. So like, okay, well, let's ship them to Australia instead. That's what I mean. Is there's like this generational identity of submission to authority.
Fair enough. Yeah, and I think when you're dealing with nations, it's hard to compare different nations to other nations. It's like comparing people to different people. It's like everybody's on a journey. Every nation is on its journey towards supergalactic omni-oneness.
Yeah.
And you have to look at, I would say American identity is very self-conscious, which is good. It needs to probably be more Christian in its consciousness. And I think there's always been sort of like, obstacles in the way of that, But we're talking about that today.
Yeah.
Whereas other nations that are not structured the way that America is, that do not have the same sort of cultural traditions that America does, they're incomparable with American identity. So, and this is the problem, is like you get, oh, what about, like you get Australians coming over to America and they're crazy. I don't know if you've noticed this. These Australians, they come over to America and they're like, I can't believe you guys have guns. And it's like, what are you talking about? You go back to Australia. Like this nation is built on the right to bear arms, dude. So it's like, you're not going to take that away from Americans. And Australians, they think they're conservative, even Australian Christians or Australian Christian pastors. It's a different, they live in a different, atmosphere and environment. So again, it's difficult to compare these nations with each other. They're all at different places, and they're all they're all on different journeys.
But there is a place for Christians to be offensive at some point, like biblically. So I know the nations are different. I know the countries are different.
They're different.
From like a
What I mean by that is
perspective,
they're at different places along the pathway of Christian consciousness. And so America fought for its identity. And so when you fight for your identity and you shed blood over it, it's deeply valuable to you. Whereas in Australia, I don't think Australians have ever fought for their identity. I don't know if they have. I really don't think they have. So maybe that's in the future for them. Maybe they're going to have to eventually, fight for their identity and fight for, their existence, and good for them if they have to eventually do that. Because I think every nation has to do that. Every person has to kind of do that in a spiritual sense. We're all at war in a spiritual sense, for fighting for our Christian identities, fighting for our salvation, working at our salvation. Unless you're a Calvinist, you just believe, you don't have to.
We're already there.
Hallelujah.
We're already there.
God is sovereign, even over Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for being here. Thank you for having this discussion. The plane is now landing. I've taken the controls, and this is a soft, smooth landing. Everyone will clap after we've landed.
After we've crashed.
After we've crashed, everyone will clap. It was great. I'm sorry we didn't get to questions. I had some questions.
Maybe like 10 minutes for questions? Rounded out like 2.5 hours on the dot.
You guys are down to stay?
Well,
are you talking about super chats or something? Like where you're going to make money, or you're just personal?
No,
bro, I don't do this for money.
No, we don't make any money.
I do this to lose money.
All right, let's do like a fire round. We'll do like four or five questions, 2-minute answers.
Oh, you're being generous. We probably have like 2.
Oh, okay.
Dennis, hit them.
Yeah, so these are not related to our topic tonight.
Who's that Muslim in the back of your? Who are you talking to, Gabe?
See, we're already going to go over.
Okay, no, I'm sorry.
All right. There are 2 other questions that are not related to our topic tonight, but I think you guys have fans on. So one is, how do Protestants interpret in the Bible where it says, "And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it"?
There's a few ways you can interpret it. There's the literal way, which is something. There's a few different ways you can interpret that verse. I wrote about this. I talked about it on Theos U. You can interpret it that Peter is the head of the church, and that's what Christ was saying. However, that does not imply or implicate any kind of lineage or ancestry or descendantry or passing of keys. It's just Peter's the head of the original church. That's it. You can interpret it that the word he used for rock is like a pebble, and he was saying it was kind of like an ironic mocking statement, like, "Hey, I'm showing you that, like, hey Peter, you're such this tiny little rock. Look at how great I am that I'm building my entire church on this," and there's nothing else implied there. You could also interpret that Christ was talking about himself. He's saying, "On this rock I will build my church." Jesus is talking about himself, that the rock is Jesus, and he's like, in that situation, he's pointing to himself. "On this rock I will build my church," and Peter has nothing to do with that whatsoever. There's multiple ways you can interpret that passage outside of, even in the most generous way you can interpret it, which Peter is the head of the original church. That doesn't include any kind of apostolic succession. That doesn't include any kind of, and then you get into Roman primacy and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't include any of that. There's no historical evidence that Peter was ever in Rome or Peter was ever the bishop of Rome. That's just church tradition. But there's a few different ways a Protestant could interpret that quite easily. I think many Protestants will just interpret that as Jesus was talking about himself, which within the text, it's absolutely linguistically possible that Jesus was just talking about himself.
Yeah, if you go to Ephesians chapter 2, in verse 19, it says, so then you are no longer strangers and aliens, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God. Verse 20, built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone. So in whom the whole structure, so it's talking about the church. And so the apostles are foundational. They are foundation stones. They are foundation stones to the church, Jesus being the cornerstone, which unites both Jew and Gentile together in the building. But the apostles have a privileged place in the foundation of the church.
Okay, so he's not the Pope. Next, Dennis.
Thank you, guys. This is another one out of the book of Daniel, where Daniel was blessing the Lord, and he says, blessed be the name. This is in Daniel 2. Verse 21, 22, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, to whom belong wisdom and might. He changes times and seasons. He removes kings and sets up kings. What's your take on that?
That's exactly what it says, is that,
Sounds,
God lifts kings
But
up.
even the good kings, the bad kings?
Well, yeah, God brings calamity. He doesn't bring evil, but he brings calamity. God punishes the Israelites. God punishes kingdoms. He punishes evildoers. God wants to judge a people. He'll give them a wicked king. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah.
So in our modern time, though, is that
Okay,
what's happening here with Biden?
Dude, this is a great
Trump?
quote. This is a great quote by Genghis Khan. He said, and this is according to a Muslim, kind of tradition, that he said, Genghis Khan said, I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you.
That's awesome.
That's one way to justify yourself.
That's awesome.
I'm like, this is great. And this is what this is how the Muslims interpreted the invasion of Genghis Khan on their lands, right? As he was the punishment of God upon them. So God, the Bible says, I believe, that God judges the nations. He who chastises the nations, will he not chastise us? So God chastises nations. God uses nations to judge nations. And we see this all throughout scripture, but it still takes place. God still intervenes among the nations and uses and puts up one nation and tears one nation down. And then, so the US has a unipolar moment, and then the unipolar moment's over. And, and why is that? Well, look at the sins of the United States: murdering children through abortion, legalizing, perversion, and all the other things, supporting Israel.
I think we're very privileged in the United States I think in the context of world history, borders were changing every 20 minutes. Governments were changing every 20 minutes. People were used to it. It was something people understood. It wasn't wild or out of context. But in the United States, we have the longest single form of government, the longest government, oldest government in the history of the world. There has never been a government, at least that we have historical record of, that ran in one exact form, exact constitution, exact governing documents, exact style of government for 250 years. It's never happened. At least we have evidence of. There was always some form, even what about England? England changes form of government all the time. So we are very privileged, and we're very privileged to think that nothing could ever happen, nothing will ever happen. But if the hand of God comes off of America, even for a second, something will happen. Something will happen, and we'll be looking at different borders, different styles, different whatever. So maybe that's our opportunity for Christian nationalism. Was that the last question that you had?
There's an Instagram one. While I read it real quick. Well, it's more of a comment.
While he's doing that, if you guys in my chat on Instagram have any questions, just drop them in there while he's reading his.
Perfect. And I will say on that point, Dennis, I've said this last time we were on. I personally think America's already under judgment. Our number one export is sodomy, all the baby murders, like you guys have said. Plenty of other reasons, but I have no reason to think that we're currently under blessing. And the judgment probably started around 1948 or so.
And Fords. Sodomy and Fords.
So, well,
I don't think we're under judgment
not
for the
that many
Fords.
Fords. Not that many Fords.
No.
This one's more of we got a couple of douchebag comments, and then this one. What have I stumbled into? The audacity of this conversation. More white men talking about right and wrong in the world instead of sifting their own hearts.
I am a
bless you.
transgendered black woman. Thank you very much.
Right.
How
I was gonna say,
dare
that's
you
such a racist
assume?
comment.
The
Well,
audacity.
Well, you know,
I don't have anything to that.
we need more 350-pound lesbian
Lift up
women
white voices.
online. It just shows you that we need these people
Guys,
online.
we
Hold on.
do need another good sifting, another good
So I got
war.
I've got
John
one
got something.
question. Can you explain Matthew 4:9 through 11 and how it doesn't condemn nationalism and is it wrong to be an ethnocentrist as a Christian? So
Matthew 4?
Matthew
Pull it
4:9
up.
through.
That's the
all right.
temptation of Christ.
I will give it all to you. He said, if you kneel down and worship me, get out of here, Satan, for the scripture said, blah, blah. Okay, it's temptation of Christ. Yeah, that's nothing to do with nationalism at all.
No, I would
at
say
all.
I would say go to Matthew 28, where Jesus commissions the leaders of his
Like
church
disciples of the nations.
to baptize the nations and teach them what he has commanded them.
Furthermore, you go
Make
to
that make sense.
go to the Old Testament. You have look, you've got two things. You get two options here. You've got globalism or nationalism. Because if you're not a nationalist, what are you? Well, you're a globalist. That's the only other option. There's no third option. There's no Molinism, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, if I'm not a nationalist, then I got to be a globalist. Okay, does God condone globalism? Well, no. He smited globalism at Babel. You had the whole world coming together, trying to do something together. And God said, he said, look down and told the angels, look, if they're all together, nothing will be too great for them. And he changed their languages and he scattered them. Look, and here's the idea. You talk, and I'll finish with this because my eyes are burning. I'm staring at a screen for so many hours.
Look at these. Look at these. Look at these.
Let's get out of here. You look like some
Jim Jones.
narco,
You got to
looks
get
like
the
some
Jim Jones glasses.
narco state CIA agent.
Mossad.
So you go back to the fall of man, Adam, Eve, all of that. Before the man fell, they lived in a state of what was called integrity. The state of integrity is what theologians refer to this as, where it's pre-fall mankind, pre-lapsarian. So if mankind stayed in that state of integrity, if there was never a post-lapsarian, what would have happened on the earth? People would have spread out, population would have grown, they would have lived in all kinds of different parts of the world. Okay, would nations have formed? Well, they would have had to have formed. They would all speak the same language, sure, but they would have had to form nations for civil services. Okay, if I'm living in the Garden of Eden in Mesopotamia and I'm living in Idaho, I can't go get my health care in Mesopotamia. For the simple fact of like basic everyday needs and necessities, you would have to form communities. The communities would have to be governed. Those governments would have to be governed. You would have to form nations. You would have to. You could not have a global homo government. And as you had people growing up in different climates, some people would grow up in the desert, some people would grow up in the jungle, some people would grow up in the Arctic. You would have different cultures form, different art forms form, different styles of music form. People would ride horses in Europe. They don't have horses in America. Stuff would happen. People would evolve socially in different ways. You would have different cultures, different nations, different governments. That would be in a state of integrity, which is God's perfect plan for the universe. So yes, according to God's perfect plan, you would naturally have to have nations. You would naturally have to have different governments and different cultures.
John, don't you know that's all sinful? It's
all sinful.
That is all the product of the fall, John. All the division that you just created.
I thought
So
we would all
divisive.
be. I thought
You're
we'd
so
all be
divisive, John.
I thought we'd all be naked in the garden.
Me too. That's what I was hoping for.
I mean, sounds pretty cool. Boys, we did it.
This is great.
We
you so
freaking
much,
did
guys.
it.
Thanks for having us on. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys. Thank you guys for coming
Lot
on.
of fun.
Sorry for being white and opinionated.
I told you I'm a black woman.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Well,
You're
you
right.
guys can mail the check to my undisclosed location.
Actually,
And I'll just be looking for that.
I'm gonna mail you a bill because, like I said, we
Oof.
are in the business of losing money.
Naturally. That's
but
exactly the way a Romanian would do it.
well, it's a write-off. Hey, it was fun. Educational.
Yes.
I think we're kind of touching on some things, and I think my biggest takeaway here is local. Get involved local. That's where it all starts. And as much as humanly possible, we need to be changing the culture more so than whoever's sitting in that freaking office in DC. I think that we have the power to do that. We have the power to change the culture, at least around us and our own communities,
Well,
so that's where we should focus.
If things get too bad, we can help the Jews build the third temple and bring them to heifers, and then Christ will come back. And we'll be done.
Totally agree. And then genocide the Gazans.
Can we have another conversation on
That's in Revelation?
Genocide.
Can we do this again? Can we do this again and talk about that?
Only if John gets to his daughter.
I want to see an entire napalm wall of fire just erupt.
I want to see Gaza turn to glass.
Pillar of fire. Hey, you saw Greg Locke say that, right? You saw Greg Locke say, "Drop the bombs, make that place glass," and usher in.
And I sent him even more money after he said that. I doubled my tithe to him.
Hallelujah.
Only if they're American bombs.
That's good.
Perfect. That's
all right,
it,
guys.
I don't want us to say anything else. I want it to end right there. I'm
taking her jobs, taking her bomb making jobs. I said something else. Sorry. All right.
Still on, yeah.
All right. God bless you and good night.
God bless you guys.
Hold on. Did it end? Did it end?
I gotta end my live. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go up to the Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Hold on.
Hey,